If I, yeah, you could hear me. So I'm guessing it's picking up from the camera. So we'll get the camera on the speaker.
Where is the speaker?
I think he's going to stand behind the table. Right here. What do you see?
Either we should use
Oh, you're not sharing your camera. Actually, I guess it doesn't matter because I have voice. That's all we care about. Right. Oh, yeah. Oh, I see us. Oh, there's one looking at the speaker. Yes, I see the speaker area now. Is it good? That's right. It looks pretty good, right? Yes, you could definitely hear things. But that's okay. At least they can hear.
Yeah, I switched the camera to.
So it should be okay though, right? To keep it this way so that we could hear. Like,
you can get the microphone. Okay, we'll switch to a different microphone. I think I'm going to. Briefly, I will switch back to the headset. Can you hear?
Test, test, test,
Yes, can hear you.
test.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, okay.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me? As you've already figured out, we've rotated our program today because they did some rework in the building. We assume this is the cause, and we don't seem to be able to get an image on the big projector on the ceiling and or the other two screens. But we can get them over here, so we just rotated 90 degrees, and I think you can see quite well. These have very, very good resolution. So welcome to our program. I'm going to start a little bit earlier because I got a couple of things I want to cover besides this. Just if you're not familiar with the buildings, there are restrooms on the right and left. The right's for men, the left is for women. There's a restroom in this back corner for everybody. Although these are probably more accessible and easier to get. You got to walk past a bunch of ladders and tables in there. The other thing is our next two programs are going to be on the third Saturday of the month for October and November. That was because the speakers could not present to us on the second, so we decided to shift. So if you probably don't pay any attention, but some people pay attention to which Saturday. So 19th of October is our program. You've been watching the slides up here, and that will be on basic investment questions. Our November program is taxes, Claudia Hill on 2019 taxes. So one more issue, we could use any help that can be given. I know some of you helped set up the chairs. We have SIGs where we could use a little bit of help because we're now broadcasting all those programs. And we finally bought some additional speakers, so the audio quality should be particularly better on the Fundamentals of Investing program and on the Investor Discussion Group. But on the 19th of October, we've got board members that are on vacation. So any help you can provide on that day will be appreciated. We're lining up everything so we can handle it. But just in general, if any of you would like to get involved with the overall organization, help set up programs, you're welcome to come into the board as an associate. And then if you want to stay, it works out. We can get on the board. We've got, I think, 9 members of the board now. So anyway, we've got some new books because when Al passed away, we lost all our reserve books. Bill's going to make a real brief comment on that. We're going to give away one of Brian Livingston's books.
Good morning, all. Let's see. I want to go back to what Lynn said. Turns out my wife's birthday is the 19th, and special birthday for her. So I'm not going to be here. So which one of you is volunteering to come help us? Because we're really short-handed. Okay. Would you kindly give your name and contact information to Lynn? Thank you so much. All right. Appreciate it. Okay. So this morning, we're blessed to have 2 great speakers. This gentleman right here. Where's Brian? There's Brian. Brian Livingston. He's been a president, I believe, of the Puget Sound chapter, correct? 7 years, so he's done his duty. And he spent 6 years writing this book. Now, as Lynn mentioned, due to Al's passing, we no longer had access to our books. So I took a task to refresh our books we raffle off. I reviewed over 200 books and boiled it down to 17 that are over here. And we have, this morning, we're going to raffle off one of Brian's books, personally signed. And I bought one for myself. It's really outstanding. I think before you leave, you ought to take a peek at what's inside. And it really is quite a remarkable bit of investing lore. And it'll all help any one of us. I thought I knew everything, you know. You know how we are? Well, let me tell you, every time I open it, I say, oh yeah. Okay, so the book list is organized differently than it has in the past. I selected 4 for very broad investing principles. There's 4 for asset allocation. For international, there's 1 on the euro. We've got a great little book on valuation. If you've ever heard Professor, I think it's Demadrion, from NYU on valuation, there's a little book on that. We've got 1 on bonds, 1 on indexing, a couple on technical analysis, 2 on rational/irrational investing behavior. So it's a broad selection, and hope you'll enjoy it. Take a peek before you leave. Yes, Larry. Well, we can for a price. Can we do that? Sure we can. Yeah, we'll get it up there. Okay, so thanks very much. I'm sure you'll enjoy the program. Here we go.
Okay, our first speaker is on the subject of cybersecurity and the changing world. Ed Machado is a Senior Information Security Manager at Star One Federal Credit Union. He's probably not surprised by this. It is very difficult to find people who can talk on this subject knowledgeably. We went for about 12 years searching for the last speaker we had, and we're very glad that Ed has come in. His just a little bit about his background. He has worked in information technology for 25 years, previously served as Vice President of Information, System Security, and Chief Operating Officer in a variety of companies. He now serves as Star One's Information Security, Privacy, Identity Theft Officer. these are areas where you really have to stay up to date. And if you think you set up your computer for total security and then forget about it for 5 years, that isn't the way it works. I've actually worked in that area of Boeing. And, the amount of work it takes to dig up stuff that happens on certain pieces of software is quite extensive. Yes? I think they have to refresh it. Okay, we'll talk. We'll get that worked out. This is a little different setup than we've had before. And we've got a very talented crew here of people who solve problems. Anyway, so let's give a warm welcome to Ed, and I'm looking forward to the presentation and how to keep ourselves, myself and everybody else, more secure.
Thank you. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you all for having me here today. Again, my name's Ed Machado. This is one of 4 talks I'll be giving in the next year, or actually within the next month, on this same subject. So I don't know if we can get my slides going. Do I have to point which way? There we go. Okay, screen them. And do I have to, which way do I have to point this? Make sure. Right here? Okay. Okay, got it. Got it. Okay. Again, I'm giving this same talk 4 times in the next month. I cover a wide variety of areas. And first and foremost, no one be embarrassed about this because this happens everywhere. How many in this room use a computer today? Just raise your hand. How many in this room use a smartphone of some sort? How many people use an Android? Okay, great. How many of you have ever received an unsuspecting call from the IRS on your smartphone? Yeah, they have your phone number, right? This is just comment. Has anyone here, and you don't have to say, identity theft is a huge concern. We're going to cover some things about your personal privacy, computer fraud, computer scam. But in order to start this presentation, I know there's a lot of terms out there in the industry, and there's a lot of things that we talk about and hear, and what is it? And what are it? So we have a really good agenda today. I am going to cover cyber terminology, because we can't talk about cyber unless we have some basic understanding of things. When I talk about a hacker and phishing and ransomware, you don't understand what that is, so we're going to kind of go over it. This is real high level, but by the time you leave this room, you're going to have 3 takeaways. First of all, what am I doing to ensure my personal privacy? Wow, look what's happening in the industry as far as threats. And third of all, you're going to go tell a friend what you just learned today. So we're going to talk about cyber terminologies. We're going to talk about anatomy of a breach. And how many people have heard about Capital One? And I can tell you how easy Capital One data breach. It was huge. Millions and millions of personal records, due to a lack of control. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what's going on in the financial services and the current threat landscape. We are being attacked at a rate that's unprecedented, and they're coming faster and quicker than we can respond to and put up our defenses. I'm not going to scare you about some of these things. I'm going to talk about 5 plausible things that may happen in the financial services sector. However, financial services are very well protected. We're going to talk about malware and viruses. We're going to talk about the computer and the use of the internet. We're going to cover social engineering, phishing, and phishing scams. I'm going to show you some examples of that. But at the end of the day, the best thing you can do is get some best practices. And when I talk about these best practices, they're just really just being smart. I'm going to use 3 words: stop, think, and connect everything you do on the internet. Second, trust and verify. You can trust it, but verify it. I trust nothing these days because I can be anyone. I can be Amazon and send you a package notification. I can be your UPS. I can be anyone. I am a social engineer by trade. I social engineer my company every month, and I train on it. And even though I train on them and I tell them not to do, I get people to fall for my phishing emails every month. So anyways, let's get started. Move to the next slide. Thank you. All right, so we're going to start with some cyber terminology. Now, I don't need to read all these to you, but you're going to hear about threat actors, hacktivists, national activists, but mainly I'm going to talk about hacker and cyber criminal. Being a cyber criminal, I don't need to know anything technical. Today, cyber criminals can hire it out to make money. It's a business. It is nothing but a business. But a cyber criminal is typically trying to exploit people or someone or an organization for some sort of financial gain. National threat activists are trying to do reputation damage to like our national voting system. They're trying to bring that, they're trying to bring down the U.S. government. They're just trying to disrupt. The number one targeted place is power plants. Power plants are targeted every day by threat actors. But cyber criminals, we're going to talk about because they're after your money, and we're here to protect your money. Malicious code. Malicious code is just a form of software that you can put on your computer. And I don't know, some of you may have seen, all of a sudden a pop-up comes up and says, you have some type of malware on your computer. That can never happen. I'm going to go over that. That does not happen on the internet. That's all fake stuff. So, ransomware. Ransomware is a form of malicious code, but what they're going to do is how many people back up their computers on a daily basis? We're going to talk about it. Or to your iPhone, to the iCloud, or some type of storage. Backing up is the number one practice because at my company, we get ransomware, we will never pay it. FBI says never pay the ransom. City of Baltimore got ransom. They were down for 1 week. They had to pay to get their systems back because they did not have good recovery and good cost. But one thing we do, back up, we say, go ahead, I'll just recover from my last night's backup. Viruses and Trojans, a lot of people get stuff, computer starts acting, they clicked on something, they don't know what they did, computer starts going goofy, all of a sudden they call Ed, I don't know what's going on with my computer. Yeah, well, it's either bad adware, just something malicious. One of the number one things that happens with malicious software and Trojan is called a keylogger. You guys have a keylogger. You go to a site that looks legitimate, you click on something, and I'm going to install malicious software unknown to you on your computer that's now going to watch every keystroke you do, everywhere you log on, and send it back to me so then I can go after you with your personal identity. And that's one of the number one things that it puts on personal computers are keyloggers. People say, how did they get my online banking credentials? How did they log into my Fidelity Services account? Because probably there was something done somewhere. The intruder was watching that person and was able to get the credentials. We're all in the money business here. How many people have heard of cryptocurrency? Right? But crypto has many forms. Crypto is the de facto digital standard of currency. As you know, Facebook is coming up with its own currency in this world if they get approved, called Libra. I don't know how it's going to go, but you got Facebook. I trust nothing by that company, by the way. I love it's great as it is here in the Bay Area. They're going through a lot of growing pains and a lot of fines on their data privacy practices. But crypto is just it's just a digital currency, and it comes in many forms. The number one form is called what? Bitcoin. It's a de facto digital currency. I work with the FBI. I wish I would have been invested in Bitcoin a long time ago. Unfortunately, we hate it because it's untraceable. There's no legislation, and cyber criminals just exploit it. A lot of people made a lot of money off of it. Don't get me wrong. And now people are going after crypto wallets. They're stealing their full crypto wallet. Multiple $1 million heists are getting done on people's Bitcoin, but it's de facto standard. And Bitcoin is being accepted as a form of payment. It's now the 250,000 merchants and vendors on the internet. It's not, there's nothing real about it, right? Who's controlling that? Oh yeah, one Bitcoin, $15,000 stock price. So kind of unique. I'm sure we all wish we would have invested in it a long time ago, but unfortunately, it's used by the bad guys. So we're kind of covering some of this stuff. So one thing you guys don't know, you hear, oh, they had a vulnerability. A vulnerability is nothing but a programming error in software which a hacker tries to exploit. What I'm going to tell you is most data breaches, we know about the vulnerability. It goes unresolved. 3 months later, the hacker takes advantage of it. And I'm going to use an example here. There was a known vulnerability. Have anyone heard about the WannaCry virus, City of Atlanta, Federal Express? WannaCry? Okay. WannaCry was the largest ransom attack sent out by North Korea, and it attacked all kinds of British health system. It was a known vulnerability. The vulnerability was published 3 months prior to the attack. It was a programming error, Microsoft. A patch came out immediately. My company patched it the same day. We remediated because we have a very active system. But we're small. Federal Express has 250,000 systems all over the world, globally, and trying to update those systems was not possible. The vulnerability existed. City of Atlanta. Typically, cities have very antiquated systems. They're older legacy systems. They're not up to date. All of this could have been prevented. City of Atlanta was out of business for 1 week 2 years ago, including the airport. Airport was shut down for 2 days. They couldn't do anything. Took over, locked down all their systems. They were in a mass recovery mode. Federal Express took 2 weeks for them to recover from a known vulnerability. And we get vulnerabilities. Adobe and Microsoft are the two largest vulnerable systems, and we're going to talk about that. But the software company tells you about that vulnerability, and what you're supposed to do is update on a regular basis. And I'm sure many of you on your home computers and your iOS and your phones, if I ask what version you're on, probably a little bit behind. But there's other ways to mitigate that. So yeah. So one way to exploit a vulnerability is by sending you an email link to do something. That's called a phishing. I'm not fishing for fish. I'm fishing for your personal information to exploit you. So phishing is the #1 way of compromise that takes place in today's industry. Again, I do it every month to make people aware. I train on it, and I say, if you see the words click here anywhere in that email, don't click here, okay? Your financial institution is not going to ask you, hey, you have a compromise. You may get your card validated, like, hey, did you perform this transaction? But hey, we need to verify your information. Most reputable financial will never send you an email like that. So you always just call them back. But people fall for this all the time. Fake website. My company has been spoofed 2 times this month alone. Fake websites, phishing, where people are just taking our brand. It's called brand reputation. We took them down within the same day, but they're trying to get people to fall for that. The #1 other way of getting information is phishing, where I have partial information about you, and I'm calling in to obtain more information. And I had a great video, if I could have played it, of a cell phone provider being cracked in 30 seconds by a professional social engineer, where they were able to change the member's email, change all their passwords, and by simply perpetuating to be the wife of person who had the cell phone. And phishing, as an example, because I'm going to give you real life examples, this just happened literally last week. A person called in impersonating one of our customers and was going through all the what we call know your customer. You know, they'll ask you what's your last four of your social, you know, where you may have your mortgage. They ask you data wall questions. Our call center, the person called in. They noticed that there was a delay. We ended up calling the real person to verify. The Fisher was on the phone with the customer, calling in, getting the information to propose identity theft on the account. And our real live customer said, I'm on the phone with you. Because that person impersonated that they were a representative of the company. This happens all the time. Phishing, phone calls. So again, someone calls you on that, how do you prevent that? Let me get your callback number. Let me call you back. You know, verify, right? Verify. So anyways, those are some of the most common terminologies. Are there any questions? Yes. Phishing with a B. Yep. Phishing. So there's phishing, which is typically email. So the question was phishing.
Phishing.
Yeah. Phishing with a B.
And the smishing thing.
Smishing is the smishing. I didn't cover. I'm going to cover in my other. Smishing is text email where you get. So there's phishing, and smishing. There you go. Anything with ing typically isn't good, right? Yes.
I've been getting a lot of emails lately that I just eyeball. I could tell that there's a problem there. Phishing. So one of the things I do is I look at the return address. You know, you get somebody out there's been hacked and they got my email. I think is the way it works. Is that right?
That is correct.
So in comes this email from somebody I purportedly know, and I look at the return address, and it's not the right. You can just by inspection, besides looking at click here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to cover some of that in
Okay.
the precautions, the things you do, verifying an email. And I have an example in the slide. So
Great.
Thank you. Very good information. So, So how do these companies get breached, or how do you get breached? I'm going to say right now the number one way is I'm going to throw a lure out there. Phishing. Is probably the number one way an employee does something that we're not defending about, or you do something, person on your computer, and it's going to do something. And typically, it will do some type of credential compromise. Because getting your credentials is the first step to really compromising the system, the company, or an individual. So they're going to ask you, hey, we need your credit card company. I need to verify your information. Give me your member name, your date of birth, your social security number. That's a lot of information they're asking there to fill in. No rep company can do that. So that's usually where it starts. With the Capital One breach that just happened for millions of us, that was poor security IT. They left a loose configuration in one of their systems, a known vulnerability, and an insider, call her an insider because she probably had inside knowledge. Capital One had the responsibility to patch that server. They left an open hole, a known hole that we looked for as a vulnerability to exploit and take out confidential. Could have been easy to say. There's going to be something big to pay for that. They said it was Amazon's responsibility. No, it was Capital One. Their equipment, they're responsible. Where it was hosted in the cloud, but they basically with a loose application to a web application firewall that allowed that person to go right in, get the data, and put it out. So poor security. And again, as I talked about, poor security, Federal Express, City of Atlanta, City of Baltimore. it just goes on and on. Not systems up to date, not responding in time. Now again, to each their own. With one system, 1,000, right? So it's a tough thing. And how many people have heard of third-party compromise, like Target, right? Vendor came in, did something, put some type of software on it. Millions of card records are exposed, and the financial institution, so, hey, we blocked your card, you won't have a card for a week, and we're going to send you a new card. How many have gotten those compromised cards? Yeah, it happens all the time. Hey, where did I use my card? How did it get compromised? A lot of it's through large data. You get notifications from financial services, the responsibility of the third party to provide them. But those kinds of something is done by a third party and it's like that. Yes, correct. So the question was, are you at risk? And I'm going to use Equifax. As soon as I was on the list, I went out and got data. Okay. All right. So Equifax, you go out and you can check your personal information. I'm in this industry, I subscribe to alert third-party services. I don't make any mention of anyone. There's a lot of them out there. But yeah, I was on the list. If Capital One is supposed to should be notifying customers of the breach, you get it, probably going to have to do some precautions. And talk about, you set a credit freeze, you have credit watches, and, you just need to monitor your activity. I look at my credit score every month. I get a lot of personal privacy, but I get that all automated, and there's a lot of services out there. If you don't, they are expensive. I cover my whole family for $200 a month, $200 a year. $200 a year to cover my entire family to monitor all their activities. But yeah, that's not a good one. Capital One is bad for financial services industry. All right, so the next thing we'll talk about the cost. We estimate my company, if we were have a total exposure, we'd probably be $20 million or plus if we were to get free. And then our reputation risk. What about our reputation? You want to do business with a company that's just giving up all your personal information? Probably not. So the cost of a data breach on average costs a company about $8 million. Again, you can look at some of the statistics, everything I'm talking about, how the breach is conducted, the third parties. But we're all about reputation, and there is no recovery from these things. Well, we still all trust Yahoo. We all still trust Facebook, giving away we trust because it's connected world. I'm still a Yahoo email person. I use multi-factor authentication on everything I log into, no matter what it is, and I use 16-digit passwords on every system, except for my phone, which won't allow me. Why 16-digit password? Because after the 14th character on your home computer, your password cannot be cracked. Up to 14 characters. If I get on your computer, I can what's called reverse engineer your password. So I use 16-character passwords on everything I use. I use multi-factor at Yahoo. So I log in, send me a text message, I do my text, I log in. We truly believe in multi-factor authentication. Yes. So the question is, at many places they put minimum password, right? Okay. So typically they allow longer. So don't go minimum password requirements. Okay. We're going to talk about. And also we're going to talk about don't make the password the same. Corrupt one, I get all. It's called a one click, where I can get one password, and many people use similar passwords all throughout. We'll talk about that. But reputation risk is a huge thing around here, data breaches. And lastly, why am I so concerned? Because look at who's the most targeted area and who gets them. It's financial services. And we're all here about investing, and it's we've got the money and we've got the information, right? We know everything about you. We have all your and we know that you have X amount of dollars. So either you're going to be targeted as a company-wide, or we're going to be targeted as an individual. So we get a two-pronged attack in the financial services, and it's coming at a rapid pace. So this is today's threat landscape, and it's getting worse every day. So it takes months or longer for most financial institutions to recognize it. They don't have tools or systems in place. They're getting much better. I don't want to lie, they're much better. I will say today, in its defenses that I know most are using, you do something, I'm getting notified within minutes something's going on. We have a new rule in the cyber world. I get alerted within 1 minute of something happening. In 10 minutes, I'm understanding it. And in 60 minutes, I'm responding and mitigating. So 1-10-60. However, previous to these new frameworks, it typically took 180 days or longer to identify an attack. Intruders were in systems and they didn't know about Yahoo 3 years, right? But we're talking about legacy versus new. So things that happened a long time ago with breach of data, it's a changing world on our side of threat defenses, because the hackers, and they were always better than us. They were always ahead of the game. 180 days, it's anywhere from 100 to 203 days, but now our new response is 1-10-60. You're going to hear a lot more about that, because that's going to be the standard we're going to be held to protect our information. Small institutions, and where I work is not relatively small, but I'm dealing with a lot of 500 million, 1 billion type credit unions. There's all kinds of community banks that you might be business with, $1 billion, under $1 billion. They're at risk because they can't put in the defenses, and they have to accept much more risk. They can't hire the expertise to defend these against these attacks. There's a lot of great resources now to do that, but that's one of the major issues. So about 73% are perpetrated by the outside, but the Capital One data breach is insider knowledge, insider theft. I believe two biggest risks in the financial sector. I believe in internal data theft. Someone, a contractor, somebody's going to do something with their data and have to report it out. Okay. And then my second biggest risk, vendor third-party risk. I can't protect all my third parties that I share information with, but a lot of those risks come through that. Again, and then look at the percentage of compromises through email. It's astonishing that even after years of training on this is where it's coming from. All phishing email, it's all not recognizing, as we said over there, not recognizing the identifiers to that. The problem is now the tools are changing in the landscape, and threat actors are now putting malware on, malware wipe. They'll put it on, they'll do their thing, and they wipe their trails. When we talk about that in anatomy of the cover, fileless malware. So fileless malware, because it used to be executables, put something on your computer. Your defenses personally have to be up to date. We'll talk about that. Keep things up to date and patched. That's going to eliminate most of that, but it's coming fast and it's changing. We're now using artificial intelligence to detect behavior of systems, and AI has pro and con. We're going to talk about that. Artificial intelligence, but it is doing a really good job on our defenses. But as good as we're doing it, the bad guys are using AI on their side, right? And so some interesting statistics, what's going on in our world. As good as we are, they're just better. I'm sorry. I mean, nothing against Russia, but they're the hub. They They are so good and so far more advanced than the technology tools that we're using today, our defenses. We're trying to get in and learn what they're doing. I also, some of the hackers in the world, I just came back from DEF CON. Everyone heard of DEF CON? DEF CON is the world's largest hacking conferences, and they create hacking villages. And you get to walk into these rooms and watch them hack smart cars. What are they doing against Tesla? I saw them go against voting machines. And I'm going to say right now, a new voting machine, they could not crack at DEF CON. It's good news. Okay? It's good news. There was a $10 million voting machine, but hey, they couldn't crack it. But these guys are so good. It's scary. And then, and North Korea just hires people. That's all they do. Figure out ways to corrupt and infiltrate, wreak havoc, and do all kinds of things. This whole point-and-click fileless malware, you don't even know what's happening on your computer. It's so good. It's advanced, still not the common standard. Defenses are out there. I'm going to tell you right now, and I'm making no plug for any companies here in Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley has some of the top security companies in the world working right here. And I'm a big proponent for what I do. I employ a few of those in our defenses today. They're really good, and they're addressing some of these new technologies. But we are in the hub of technology here. I don't know how many people have heard of a company called CrowdStrike. They're an investor. CrowdStrike was the largest IPO in Silicon Valley history, and they're really good. They're called a next generation antivirus company. For a large institution, I make no there's a lot in that world. CrowdStrike gives us a 100% guarantee that we will not be corrupted or have ransomware. But they can do that now because they have yet to have it happen. But that guarantee will probably go away once it does happen. But that's their guarantee today. They're a fabulous company here in Silicon Valley. One of many in this area, but they're fighting against that fileless malware because they're looking at the behaviors of the computer, not the actual signatures that old antivirus do. It's just they say, oh, this is a virus that does this, and they're actually learning the behaviors and looking at what gets executed at the level. Like, is it looking malicious? And they block it. They block it before it happens. As an example, not one person using CrowdStrike antivirus is there. I don't work for them, but they're claiming that not one of their clients were infected with malware. They detected it before it happened. And that's any questions on that? Pretty crazy. Yes. Yeah. It's very costly. It's a corporate wide. It's mainly used for corporate level for that. This is real. This is really what I can hire CEO business email compromise. This is taken right from FBI threat intelligence. Hey, look at that. They're going to go after a CEO of a company. Dark web intelligence, what's shared, this is a business. I don't need to know what I'm doing. I just want to make money. And I know I can use Bitcoin, and I can hire some computers, some guys to do it for me, and I'm going to run it through out of the U.S. and run it through a bunch of botnets. Botnets are a bunch of computers connected to run a bunch of simulations against people. And I got a little bit of cash, and I'm going to make a lot more cash by doing things like this. And this here, they're going after what's called whale. This is a whaling. They're going after the whale, big guy. Just so you know, in something like this, in our world, it's called business email compromise. $12 billion has been lost in business email compromise where someone impersonates the CEO asking another senior level executive to do something on their behalf. There was one company that went defunct in Silicon Valley 2 years ago because they spent millions of dollars on a wire out, not recovering. It was CEO. It was business email companies. They're really good, and you have to defend against it. My regulators just sent out a week ago Friday a risk alert, cyber business, be aware of business email compromise. Smaller institutions are more at risk and larger. Most people are aware this is nothing new, but that's how easy it is. So this is the scary part for you guys. It scares me. So we know what's going against the financial sector, what's happening in the industry, and what's being done. And in this world, credential and identity theft is by far the most rampant. But how many people in this room have heard what's called a ghost identity? Ghost identity. Let me tell you, ghost. Using artificial intelligence and searches on the deep dark web, I'm going to take Edward Machado's information, but I'm not going to do what's called true identity theft. I'm going to make a ghost of Edward Machado. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take his name, learn some things about him, then I'm going to get a social security number that's not issued. I'm going to get a real address somewhere, and now I'm going to create this fake identity that's real to the ghost, but it's not me. So I'm not compromised, so I'm not seeing anything about me being done. 80% of all fraud that's taking place is being done with ghost identity. All the detections, because it's a real identity, is bypassing our controls for identity theft. Credential and identity theft has gone to a whole new ballgame. Before, they try to get your wallet, your checkbook, they would infiltrate you. But now, for financial institutions, they're just saying, I'm going to go create somebody that you can't re-identify. I'm going to open up an account, probably get a loan at multiple instances. I'm going to take that loan, walk away. Pretty fast? Yes. Very good question. Glad you caught that. That's an excellent question. I forgot to mention. Typically, the social security number being used is for somebody who has no credit record, typically someone under the age of 18. So the only catch is here, typically it's someone with the issuing date of birth, who have no credit record. So here's the only way we've caught it. You pass all the tests, but now the check is, I'm 55, that date of issuance of that social security number should be last year. So we now have a new check to put in place. But when you're using automated systems to be speedy in your approvals, that's not one of the checks built in. They're working on that right now. That is how. So they're taking under 18 typically. So something's been compromised. They got that. They just create this person. They go out, and it's typically they're going through consumer loan fraud. New account. That's our number one. I think we had 16 occurrences of potential artificial intelligence goes into this month alone background. I mean, we're just saying no, nope, nope, nope. And it's all through web-based channels, right? They're not coming in with an ID. They're just out there creating false. So great question. Sorry. Second of all, talk about data theft manipulation. Well, they used to take data, but now they're manipulating. Could you imagine a fraudster manipulating a number on the stock market, going undetected, changing adjustment points, changing information, not taking data, manipulating their advantage, or cause great harm to a large publicly traded company, something of that nature, doing their financials, just manipulating what's already there. I'm in, I have access. I don't want it. I want it. So data theft manipulation is all about taking it out. This is really a plausible guess of what's going to happen in the next year or two. I talked about disruptive malware. That's the file that's malware. It's changed. It's morphing every day. The variants of viruses, trojans, ransomware. It's just you have to have good defenses, but they're just changing. And I've been doing this since 1999, and I had phishing emails back then. I had maybe 25 viruses a month using a old company called Machado that was in 1999. We had virus that but they didn't have to update their signature files very often because it wasn't really that well done. Back today, it's just 50,000 variants of the same virus come out in the same day. It's pretty incredible. And so I talked about the emerging technologies. It's cryptocurrency today. What's the next one? They're going to morph off that. I don't know how Libra, they talk about Libra, Facebook. Biggest thing that they're talking about is anti-money. They're going to come out with a currency they're going to regulate. They got to make sure that the bad guys are watching what they're doing. One thing is about reporting and tracking funds, and that's the big thing, right? And the use of artificial intelligence is good for us. I love AI. What it can do. Some of us don't, but the bad guys are a lot better than they're more imaginative than us. And lastly, misinformation. So, fake news. Guess what? Financial services seen it. The fake news company talking about posting stuff. They took down a coal mining company back east. They went out there. It's just manipulation. They're doing everything to cause harm. You're going to see a lot more of this being used, and then you're going to see a combination of all these factors in all industries, but especially in financial. We have hope. It's okay. We have good people on our side. But any questions on that? Yeah. Yes, thank you. Dark web. So the dark web is mainly where the cyber criminals live, and it's a very sophisticated way of getting the dark web. I wish I had an example of some of the threat intelligence in the dark web. And typically, I subscribe to a service to search the dark web, and these are all places where threat actors live. This is where they share and exchange. I'm going to use this one as an example. I subscribe to dark web intelligence that reads for information in WhatsApp. WhatsApp is a encrypted communication, supposedly, but we have an app that can look at financial information related to my company and see what the threat actors they share with me. Hey, did you know you can go to this ABC company and get 20K immediate funds? Target that company. They're easy to fraud. So what it is, it's way beyond the internet. You have no searches. What we find typically threat intelligence on companies, type of threats that are being done, hard information. It's called pastebin. What's called pastebin searches. The special search where I'm looking for bin numbers that are for sale that are for my company. Okay. And lastly, I do reputation risk, deep web services. I'm looking for similar like domain name reputation, but it's way beyond the hood. So there's a bunch of special tools to do dark web searches. There's all these special underground hubs. And what we do is we subscribe to threat intelligence people. I can't do it. That does that. Another thing we do in the dark web, we get into threat actors, threat activists, and get to and they'll subscribe to kind of get to know what's going on. Many companies have books, playbooks on the current threat actors. I can't get that information. They do that in the dark web. They kind of infiltrate these rings. I have a really funny story. Looking at me, I went to DEF CON. I'm not one of the guys in this ring. I was at DEF CON, reading my book, kind of sitting here. I was in my Maui gyms, my Tommy Bahama Sperry topsiders sitting against the wall. Thursday of registration. I'm sitting there, and guy, actually two guys, had another guy. You're a federal agent spying. You're doing visual research. No, I'm not. I'm just here to learn. Obviously, I don't fit in from the physical appearance of the threat actor. I was with 30,000 pounds. Go to this conference. Don't even give me $200 cash. Have a day conference. Okay, that's how that works at DEF CON. There's no registration, no names, no credit cards, nothing. They don't want to know. My nickname is Alien X. I've got some names like Terry Burner phones. Everyone's trying to hack phones, doing all kinds of apparently I don't fit in. Next day, my hat was turned sideways. I had a crumply old shirt. I had two shoes that didn't match. Just kidding, right? But yeah, it was a pretty interesting thing. I was told that. So I am not the guy that infiltrates stuff. Apparently, people are a lot better than me. So I think we have one other question.
Individual liability.
No. So the question is ghost identity, individual liability. Typically, no individual liability. Identity theft, typically no individual liability. We try. At least my company, we try to make you whole. We will try to do everything to make you whole. Not every firm is like that, but yeah, I'm a ghost.
Maybe there is a ghost identity of you out there. Like I've Googled my name recently and found I'm married to somebody I never heard of. What do you recommend? Do we just ignore it, or do you notify
Identity
that?
theft services. Yeah, I subscribe to some reputable identity stuff just to monitor. Your name can be used. My name is public information, and yeah, your name can be used. But you just want to make sure they're not. They may do something. Name reputation is really hard to take away. It's financial risk, right? I'm worried about them ruining my financial records and things like that. So that's where identity theft. So that's the only thing I can subscribe right now to some form of.
Being a follower and user of Norton for many years, I guess I had sort of a blind faith and trust in them. But over the last year, they've been popping up. I assume it's real, but I'm not sure if it's marketing push or not for LifeLock to subscribe to that. And I've hesitated doing that, even though I think Norton's a reputable company. Wondering, is that a real message from them, or is it a pop-up that with somebody else snuck in? And one other element is on the smartphone side. I guess from years back, I was sort of a believer of, oh, Apple takes care of that. There's no need to put antivirus on your smart device, your iPhone. I've got the feeling now that's not the case.
You're correct. So LifeLock is owned by a local company. It is very reputable, and that is probably a true. When that pop-up comes up, that Norton is probably true. They're owned here now. It's a very reputable. They're very reputable. Great antivirus company. They use signature. That is one of the. There's multiple identity theft services. LifeLock is one of them. And the second question: do not trust Apple. If you're not keeping your phone up to date, use Google Chrome on your iPhone, you're at risk. Google has more vulnerabilities. You have to update your iOS. I'm going to bed. I'll tell everyone how to check this out. If you're not on version 12.41 of or I think that's the most recent. So look, I do auto updates on my iPhone. If you're not on 12.41, your iPhone's up there. If you're not on the latest version of iOS, they can compromise your phone. Now, what's the only thing you're talking about your phone? Do you back up to iCloud? Because if it does get compromised, what are you going to do? Wipe it and restore it. It takes 30 minutes to do that, depending on the number of pictures that you upload, all the songs. But yeah, great questions. Anything else? Android. Okay, so Android. Why I asked that question about Android? Very nice leading question. Android marketplace is really bad. Apple, when they validate apps, have a very secure process that they go through to make it sure. Androids are what are at risk. I can hack an Android. I'm searching I would show you the tool on my laptop, on my iPad. I have hacking tools. I'm an ethical hacker. And I could probably, if I had my fake Wi-Fi spot in your Android phone, I could probably corrupt it. Androids are more at risk. You can update like anything else. However, the apps you get from the marketplace, Google's doing a better job of certifying them. Big thing is they're either bad software or they're collecting data on them. So they're testing that. So it is what it is because that's the easy way to get on thousands and thousands. And it's more rampant in the Asia market. Android is used
what we've done is taken an older phone and gotten a SIM chip in whatever the country is. But the question I'm wondering now is, with an older phone that's probably a way out of date and not regularly updated iOS that's on it, be it an iPhone or an iPad. Is that correct? And how best to deal with international travel?
Well, if you're only doing phone calls and trying to like what you're fine, as long as you have no personal data. So I think that's a good approach. We're going to talk about international travel and some best tips. That is burner. I call it a burner phone. It's a burner phone. So it's a phone I'm not using. I'm just going to use it. I'm using it once to burn it, and I'm not putting personal data. I'm only doing it to get text or email. And I'm going to talk about some of those best practices. But that works. That's fun. Yes, you're at risk because you're using an older phone, but you're not logging into online banking on that phone. If you are, then you're at risk. You're just using it for communication. Okay, so I think I have 10 minutes. I have a few more things to cover. Quickly, we talked about anatomy of a breach, and we talked about by the way, a lot of great discussion here. Hope you guys get it. It's very interactive, so we'll plug along. Anatomy of a cover-up. Bad guy's going to get in. He's going to want to wipe it, and this is pretty common now, so that makes it untraceable. I have requirements, as many other financial institutions. I have to collect forensic logs. I have to keep separate years. I track all my changes because it's called digital forensic evidence. But they're making it harder because they're going to get in your network, and within 1 hour and 58 minutes, they're going to conduct whatever they need to do, and they're going to get out. 1 hour and 58 minutes. What's the new rule I'm trying to do? I'm trying to mitigate them within the hour, right? Because usually they're in and out of a corporate 1 hour and 58 minutes. They're in there doing what they need to do, and they want to get out, right? Because they know we're now starting to detect them, right? Remember, so you sit on the inside 180 days. It's all changed. It's all changed. So let's talk about what you can do. Malware and antivirus. Subscribe to a reputable firm. F-Secure, McAfee, Norton, I can go on. You can use anything you want. Just subscribe to something. Trend Micro, your Comcast, even Microsoft Essential Security. But have to update. If you're not updating your system, I do automatic updates, and you set that. Some people don't know, and sometimes it's very updating. iOS was set it to auto update. Have to be on a Wi-Fi network. We test in our company before we update, so we want to test the update. But those are basic. This is every computer I go to, dealing with the digital. They didn't update their software. They didn't update their software. Almost, I'm going to say 98%. Yes. I have it on mine, but there's no. Yeah, I have a version that's mobile, iPad, and personal computers. Yeah. What mine does, it checks the Wi-Fi network. Anything Wi-Fi, gallery. So that's what I'm saying. And I do everything with virtual private network. So if I'm going to do public Wi-Fi, I encrypt it all, but I validate the network. That's one thing nice about it. It says, hey, it says the Wi-Fi appears to have some good nature, appears to be safe. Okay, we're going to talk about that. So yeah, it's good stuff. Yes.
It keeps wanting to. Oh, I'm sorry. It's called Mac Keeper, and it's got a little robot, up in the corner. Comes up every day and says, "Do you want us to, clean up your computer?" And I keep cutting it out, and but I don't know how to get rid of it.
You probably should go see the guys at that spot. You probably have some form of malware. I'm not familiar with that product, so. Okay, there you go. I'm not familiar. I'm not a big PC. Thank you. So it is a known, but she got infected. Got infected. Yeah. They'll take it off.
Is Windows Defender, Windows 10 Defender, adequate to stand alone?
Yes, Windows security is adequate.
Okay, I have heard that if
How
you,
come with Windows? Windows has a lot of vulnerabilities, so their security, Windows, the Defender, it is good, it's a good product. It's a base. It can always be better, but it's a baseline. It's a good thing. But yeah,
well, it's the first time that Microsoft got its button gear and did it 100%. But I've read or heard that if you install an additional cybersecurity software on top of that, the two of them can conflict.
I turn those off. That's what we do at our practice. So baseline, you get Windows security, you can use that. Subscribe to something. So they do conflict. Like you gotta go with one. Okay, so what do we use? I make no endorsement. We're now a Trend Micro Enterprise. We also have endpoint detection and response. So I watch everywhere you go, everything you touch, every process you invoke, correlating that. Trend Micro is the baseline. We're putting on CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike is being deployed in our. So doing CrowdStrike user behavior analytics, I'm going to try to stop it and then watching what you're doing. Typically, it's compromised credentials. That's why I do what's called UBA. I can pretty much, I feel, I'm not 100% confident on anything, but I'm going to say with a high degree of comfortability that I believe between the two, it will be very hard for the intruder. CrowdStrike is not retail. CrowdStrike is yeah, microcode, Trend Micro. So I use semantic. I mean, they're all good. We're looking at replacing semantic. I did want to talk about quick before you think. Again, think before you click. Stop thinking that. This is the motto we use. Right? You see this all the time. This is just a little bit more malware that's going on in the personal computer. It does all this stuff. Adware, pop-ups, people get the nuisance, most stop that. You get a reputable firm, antivirus is going to stop most of it. The only thing it cannot stop, has anyone heard what's a zero-day virus? Zero-day means the signature files that I have are going to catch what just came out. That is one of our threats. But with CrowdStrike, if you know it's 0 day, it's going to look at behaviors, not signature. But what happens in these antiviruses, they're changing, by the way. They're just looking at known instances and variations, and they're creating blocks to that. So a 0 day virus still is kind of one of my big strong points. It's hard to do that. Usually on the French college thing, you know about it, but this perfect. Yeah, they're all anyway. Yeah, just something. Windows, they're all good. Okay, this cannot happen on your computer. No one can detect a virus remotely while you're on the internet. I say this over. I show the slide. I have a video on it. This never happened. Tell a friend. Fake, 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 fake. You know how much credit card fraud we deal with on this? Number one fraud for cards. Oh, I got a pop-up virus. Let me take control of your computer, or give me some money. I'll help you fix it. Guys, they cannot detect the virus remotely. Apple is not going to send you an email that you your credentials. It's not going to, you do multi-login. Apple support, IRS are not going to call you, tell you, this is not happening. Take this one slide to say, here's what happens. Here's what happens with ransomware. Clicked on something. Next thing you know, I can't do it online. Okay. Uh-oh. Clock is ticking. Right. And you don't pay me on time. pay, I wipe my computer and I rebuild it. But if you don't have good back, but many people in Baltimore had to pay $70,000 or something. A lot of people pay to restore it. Oh God, I just lost all my grandkids' pictures because they didn't have it back then. Yes.
Just to comment, Consumer Report wrote an article on malware very recently. And the most interesting thing in the whole report was the percentage of restorations that occur after people pay. It's less than half. Less than half where they actually repair you. They just say thank you very much and they disappear in your day.
Yeah, and that's why we take chances to never pay. I will never pay. But some people do. There's some unknown there. But you're right. It's a chance to pay. Yes. Yep. So that's why you restore. So, great question. When do you restore? I restored to my last known good. So, if I get corrupted today, go back to that yesterday. Yesterday you weren't corrupted. So it's when you get the notice, right? And they keep version. So yes, if you can correct it and then you do a backup and you have a note, but it's when you notice something happened, then you're going to go, hey, I'm not going to do it. You're going to go back to, okay, when did I last back? Oh, I did it a week ago. I didn't. So you're going to restore back to that last backup. Oh, into your external hard drive? Yes, it does. It affects the hard drive. Huh? So, yeah. So if your main files get corrupted, if you're sending it on to external point in time, and unless if you have multiple backups, so you have to have to figure out what last time did. So at my company, we backups for about a month, snapshot, so we can pretty much restore it anywhere in time. We know the snapshot date, like we say, okay, this happened here, so we're going to go back beyond the restoration date. But yeah, both would be infected.
Would you do a full scan? Because if you back up with some virus, it'll end up on your external drive. But a full scan takes a long time. How?
We back up daily. I mean, but backup daily, because you also do what's called incremental, and you need to look at. So full backup and incremental means I'm going to take my full snapshot once a week, and then I'm going to take my changes over time.
Yeah. That's not what I mean. Like, Time Machine will do that. What I meant was a scan of the virus before you do the backup, right? Because if you back up, So if you back up, if you're infected, you back up, you're just going to push that infection. So how frequently would you do a full scan and then say, okay, fine, now I can go back?
I do a full scan about once a month because it's scanning on demand. I mean, it's depends on your safety practices. So great question. So how am I going to scan before I do the backup? But you can do it once a week. What's your backup schedule and how much trust do you have in what you're doing? So it's best practice, but we do since we think everything's up to date and we have those incremental, we're not doing full system scan. All right. So I'm just going to cover this real quick. I think I'm getting over my time and I want to get some more questions. Talk about scams. Again, these are just common things. These are what happen. Never give your card to anyone over the phone that you don't know. Trust or verify. Call them back. It happens all the time. These are things you can do. Related credit cards, some of your prevention. If you go out of the country, call your credit card company. Let them know. Don't travel advice. Very, very good thing. Monitoring your account. I do believe in real-time alerts. Have that option. So we talked about a little bit of that. Here you go. Here's an example of a phishing attempt to a bank. No, they're not. No retro financial. Right? It's a phishing email. There you go. Submission tax. Talk about submission. IRS sent. I am so much trouble with the IRS right now. I keep getting them. Ah, darn. No, no one's going to send you this. Delete is your best friend, guys. The delete key on all these, just ignore. You know what's real. You got to do a little bit. Delete, delete, delete. There you go. Talked about these. I'm just kind of recapping real quick. Got transition here. You know, everything we kind of talked about. You know. Okay, this is what I want to talk about real quick. Use of public Wi-Fi. Travel overseas. Turn off your Bluetooth and your Wi-Fi at all times until you need it. I have a device that I can pretend I'm Starbucks. I can pretend I'm the shoot garden house, and I can collect all your information. I can SSL decryption between secure internet connection. I can read your password and log on. Typically, we bypass finance, government, healthcare, but Amazon, I will take your Amazon account all day long and then go do fraud on it. I've done it. I demonstrated. If I bring up my Pineapple device, public Wi-Fi, I do phones, Android automatically connect. He starts thinking he's the shoot garden house. I'm just going to collect all his information and then turn around and take. I'm going to be sitting in Starbucks, coffee, wherever. I'm going to put up a fake website there, just collecting information. But Ed, I didn't do anything. I said, did you connect to public Wi-Fi? Yeah, probably likely sorts of companies.
You got 9 minutes. So.
VPN, virtual private network. So, anyways, there's a lot of good stuff in here. We're gonna end this. So, the cybersecurity best practices with delete key, backup files, update your software, subscribe to own device, use multi-factor wherever you can, two-form factor. Again, check your passwords, avoid using public Wi-Fi. Shopping, that's the most common, but don't use it for online banking. Use a clean thing, people use for turn off Wi-Fi and broadcast and not actually scan. This is what gets corrupted at DEFCON. Everyone walks around with them, they're trying to hack. Bluetooth can get corrupted. And lastly, a whole list of resources for you guys to reference on anything you want to see on the topic like this. So, do I use a password manager? Yes, I do. And I do not use Apple password manager. There's a lot. I use what's called KeyPass. It's our company approved version. And my KeyPass password is a passphrase. However, when you use a password keeper, take the password to the password keeper, you're out of text, right? So there's many versions of that. Apple does work. It's like, things, but I don't use it. I use a third-party tool. And that passphrase is longer than 6. So I love my dog. You gotta, whatever. Think about it. You guys should start passphrases, not passwords. Yeah, passwords is good. So the question is, what type of email? It's best practice. Just whatever email you want. Yahoo, Google, but use multi-factor. Thing is, you're using this. And my Yahoo password is how many characters? 15. And what else do I have? Multi-factor. Facebook, how long's my password? 16. Is it the same as Yahoo? No. Crack one, crack all. I find out one piece of information, I'm gonna go everywhere and look for you. So that is actually one of the weakest best practices that everyone uses the same password across all systems. That's the first thing to check. So we're gonna get one, we're just gonna go out, we're gonna have a LinkedIn account, Yahoo, Gmail, I got your primary, and you use the same user login on all, or variation. You just change a character. Don't, change something. Don't be using the same login and email at all. Oh yes, one more. So the question is, do you do it externally or hard drive? I'm not going to make. I'm a remote guy, so I'm a cloud backup. We at the organization, we restore. We take visual snapshots to a secondary system snapshot every day to a physical NAT server storage, and we send them into the cloud. Because those systems, we're just trying to mitigate risk. So both are really good, but you can take it over.
Do you have other 2 or 3 providers you would recommend?
There's a lot. The new antivirus companies provide those backup services. So MACD does provide that. You can store your stuff. So you just have to look. There's a wide range of services for cloud backup services outside of iCloud. And iCloud, if you want 50 meg or more, you have to pay for it. They give you a little bit of. I use it too, but iCloud is some on. Any questions?
I have an Apple Watch, and you have to have Bluetooth on for that to work. What risk does that put me at? Because you did mention
Bluetooth corrupted. There's much Bluetooth. It's probably limited, but what's really going to do is they're going to corrupt your watch if someone wants to go after it. Probably not a data risk. I mean, it's nuisance, right? I'm going to do something, and your watch is stored, doesn't have a lot of information, it's just connectivity. So you're pretty much limited with risk on that. It does use Bluetooth. Some people have direct Wi-Fi to it, like direct Wi-Fi, to connect to the phone and stuff. But truthfully,
There are a lot of sites that access when you use a VPN. Is there a way around it? Or?
I'd have to know the exact site. Most patients step the personal VPN tunnel, so the virtual private network, they drive Wi-Fi and I encrypt my tunnel. Okay, and it's embedded. There is personal VPN on iPhone, and I don't know depending on the site, because they can't encrypt and decrypt. So your financial services can allow you to do personal VPN, using a VPN tunnel in, then you should contact that institution on what. And I don't know what specific sites that would allow. Most stuff's encrypted by default, SSL, but I'm just talking about when you use Wi-Fi, you want to have that extra layer.
In terms of travel, you had said basically avoid doing any financial on it, even with a VPN when overseas.
VPN, so the trusted Wi-Fi network with the level of security. If you want to check the balance,
No, by trusted Wi-Fi through a hotel, their Wi-Fi with VPN on it, or rather than McDonald's.
That they give you not the pub, not the open, but you want to protect the network. Okay, you don't want the open one. God, you don't need a free guest, not use it. But if you VPN in it, you're gonna layer it, right? So it's if I input a fake site, I'm not gonna see it. But I always say Wi-Fi with a password. Like, hey, you walk in, here's the Wi-Fi, here's the password. Then you use VPN with free secure. I can't say beyond a reasonable doubt. But
And if I understood correctly, you recommended fairly highly avoid Chrome on iPhone and iOS.
no,
Is that correct?
I say keep it up to date. Chrome has had 9 vulnerabilities come out the last year.
So Chrome on a PC,
yeah,
Microsoft is fine.
Update. Go look at Chrome vulnerability. It's rampant.
And I think lastly, Flash is going away. Avoid it. How can one totally avoid it, and by when?
Can't totally avoid it. Adobe is a huge culprit, and we're patching every Tuesday. Adobe is it's a de facto internet. People change how they're delivering videos and stuff. I don't think we're going to avoid it. All you can do is have precautions in place. I use Flash. We disable it on Microsoft. We use a different type of for our players may have to enable it, disenable it. I want to thank you, I think, for sake of time, Lynn. I think 10:50. I want to thank you all. I hope you guys learned. Did anyone learn anything today?
Yes.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, we'll take a 15-minute break. Ed, you'll be around a little bit if people want to ask additional questions. At 10:30, we'll start up with the next program. There's some donuts up here for any of you who like chocolate. And anyway, and then we'll have a drawing for a book. That's when we come back.
And the book is personally autographed.
No, 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 Lynn, you're okay. You're okay. You turn that one off. No, this one.
I have this here, and only about 1 in every 5 speakers ever use the stand-up podium. I like it.
Sandy. Testing. Testing.
If you got a microphone, make sure it's turned off.
Or just speak.
Testing. Testing.
Oh, perfect.
Testing. Testing. 1, 2, 3. That's too loud. Testing. Testing. Testing.
Let me test the online version. When Ed was speaking, the microphone. And I didn't check the bottom, and so that.
Testing. Testing. Seems too high.
Maybe pretend you're announce yourself, because I think the sound.
Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Testing. 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 ABC. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. The short-term trader makes changes to a portfolio daily or weekly based on indicators.
How did the paragraph?
Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, we're going to do the drawing right now. I figure out what I did with the box of raffle tickets. There it is. Okay, does everybody have the raffle ticket? Raffle ticket in hand? Okay, we're gonna ask Brian to pull out the winning ticket. So, can you hear me? It should be on. 1, 2, 3. Okay, go ahead. Okay, the number is 586, but that's true for everybody's 039. 039. You got it? Okay, you get the book. Just take that back to the Bill back there and okay. Okay, we're all ready to go. We're wired up and we've tested we checked the speakers, microphones. Okay, Brian Livingston, title of his presentation is How to Make Your Full Portfolio Muscular. I should be coming through loud and clear. Is that any better? Okay. We've already had a bit of introduction to Brian, but just a couple of comments. He is a successful .com entrepreneur, a columnist for MarketWatch and Stock Charts, author of the Muscular Portfolio, which has had terrific reviews. By the way, if you look at the book, open it up, you'll find an endorsement from Mark Holbert and from Al Zamilowski of his book. And I consider those pretty high recommendations for a book. And, anyway, you can get it on a number of sources. As has been commented, he is a leader up in the AAII chapter in Portland, and is a speaker like Al, who has gone to multiple AAII chapters and been well received. A couple of comments: how to get market-like return with no fear of crashes. The most profitable way to use the newest low-cost index funds. How 21st century science demonstrated greater gains with lower risk. Let's give a warm welcome to Brian, and this should be very interesting.
Great, thank you very much, Lynn. It's good to be here. Good morning to everybody. I want to ask a couple of questions and we can just shout them out. I have a lot of input and interaction with people when I talk. So how many people received a notice of this meeting in the mail through a paper brochure? Just say yes. How many people received an email notification about this meeting? Say yes. So about half of the people got the printed invitation that the brochure is sent out by AAII National, and about half of the people received a notice of this by email, which is great. And in the printed brochure and in the email notifications, they had this URL here, brian.li/money. And some people went to that URL before the talk and other people did not. The fact is that this talk is one part of two parts. Today is part one, which will be about an hour long, and tomorrow is part two, which is 4 hours long. And my job now is to cram so much great information into the next 1 hour of my talk that you don't have to go to the part two tomorrow. That would be great. We would accomplish everything if everyone got everything they wanted to know in 1 hour. But if you go to that URL, bright.li/money, you can register for the second part, which is 4 hours long, tomorrow at 11 a.m. at the Wyndham Garden Hotel at the San Jose Airport. And in that 4 hours, plus breaks, plus lunch, so it goes on, it's a full day experience. We're going to cover everything that you could possibly want to know, because each of us here has our own personal situation. You have a family, you have heirs, you have children, you have parents. Everyone has a different financial situation, and we want to go over that. But today, I want to go over as much as we possibly can in this hour. We have high technology here today. We have a laser pointer, which is green, and the laser pointer completely fails to work on the TV screen because the TV is transmissive and the projector screens that we usually use are reflective. So this is no good. So I have a old school pointer, which I'm going to use today in order to point to things on the screen. It's 3.5 feet long. I should just bring a yardstick on the plane with me when I come to these talks in case the technology is not working. And that is also good because no hacker can get into my laser pointer and clean out my bank account. So I'm very glad that the previous speaker, Ed, has pointed out to us the flaws and the attacks that we face every day from hackers. And I don't have to point them out with my green pointer because the green pointer doesn't even work on the screen. So I want to ask you about the type of investor that you are. And when we are doing this presentation, I'd like to say I take breaks for questions at about 3 or 4 points during the presentation. So hold your questions until we get to a point where I say, now are there any questions? Because your thought might be answered by the very next slide that's on the screen. Is that okay? So I found in my research, after many, many years of writing Windows Secrets books, I had 11 Windows Secrets books, starting with Windows 3 Secrets in 1991, followed by Windows 3.1 Secrets, more Windows 3.1 Secrets, and so on. We did a book about 2 times for every version of Microsoft Windows that came out through Windows Vista. And then I got tired of writing about Microsoft Windows, and I started writing about money. I've found in my research that most of the people out there, not necessarily AAII members, are armchair investors. They don't really pay attention to what's going on in the stock market until they read one day that we're down more than 20%. We're in a bear market. We're crashing. The stock market is going down all around the world, like the global financial crisis in 2008, 2009. Then they start liquidating their portfolios. They start selling their equities. They start lightening up and going to cash at exactly the wrong time. We have other people who we call the informed investor. The informed investor is someone who pays attention to the market, but they know that it's not necessary for them to do day trading. They know that if they make a trade only once a month and they're following a system, they'll be protected against what can happen in the market if you're not looking at the news every day. Finally, you have the short-term traders, and these are people who are day traders or they trade once or twice a week, and those people are always going to be with us. We're never going to be able to convince people that they shouldn't day trade, but 90% of day traders lose money. They are paying huge fees into companies that promote day trading, and they don't realize how those fees are adding up to them. So we will always have day traders with us. We'll always have short-term traders with us. But what I hope we can talk about today is how you can be an informed investor and trade no more than once a month. That's all we really need to do. That's all we need to keep our portfolios current, to keep ourselves in line with what the market is doing, so we're not surprised one day and find out that the market is down 30%, 40%, 50% or more, as it has many times in the last few decades. So what are our goals? I found after writing all of those books about Windows Secrets from 1991 to 2008, and I found after I had built up an email newsletter called the Windows Secrets newsletter, which started with 0 subscribers in 2003 and grew to over 400,000 subscribers by 2010. I sold WindowsSecrets.com in 2010, middle of the year, and then I started looking around. Now I don't have 400,000 subscribers, now I have a lot of money. What do I do with this money? How do I deploy this money? How do I protect it? How do I make it grow? I found that all of the information that you read about Wall Street and all of the teachings that are given to students in every business school and every college around the world is wrong. They are teaching MPT in every business school and every college around the world. MPT stands for modern portfolio theory, or Markowitz portfolio theory, who was the inventor of it, in 1952. Do you think anything has happened in the market since 1952? Yes or no? Yes, some things have happened in the market. We have changes. We now no longer have to pay a 2% fee every time we sell one stock and buy another stock. In the 1970s, it was very common that you would sell IBM and buy Xerox, and you'd have 2% less money just from the fees and the commissions that were put on those trades. Today, we can make trades for less than 1/10 of 1%. That doesn't mean that we should go into day trading. That means that for the first time, we have the ability to use low-cost funds, to use low commissions, to use low fees, and use index funds. And so one of the goals of the informed investor is we want stock-like returns or better over the rest of our lifetime. We do not want to watch the market every day. We shouldn't have to trade more often than once a month. And we want to put our focus on life. We want to go out and be in the sun and not stare at screens all day long. We want to keep our losses low during bear markets. We don't want to fear crashes, and we don't want to worry about market timing. And so is this possible? Do we have a regime now where the costs and the fees of trading are so low that we don't have to go into day trading, which is a loser's game? We can use monthly trading. We can use a very simple formula to keep our money safe while making it grow. What's true is that people who trade more often make less money in the market than people who trade less often. This is a study by professors of thousands of investors whose accounts were anonymized by the brokerage firm. And somehow they got this mass of data. And so here's the market over this period from 1991 to 1996. The market made 18%. The people who had the lowest turnover made 18.5%. They actually beat the market. You've heard it said, the people who are dead make great investors because they don't overtrade. That's really true. The study is false. It's fake news. Somebody made up this story. I think the same person who said that the Pope endorsed the president. That's who is making up the fake news. But what's true is that if you look at the people who are doing the most turnover, they are thinking, oh, I'm so smart. I'm going to sell this thing and I'll buy this other thing. And they made only 11%, while the market was making 18%. And what is going on is in our minds. What we see when you look at these anonymized trading accounts is that a trader, all of us, the average of us, the average investor, sells a stock and they buy a different stock. The stock they bought goes up about 6% in the next 12 months. The stocks they sold went up 9% in the next 12 months. It's just the way our minds work. You know how you're running around with the newspaper trying to swat the fly? Well, the fly is onto your game. And they're moving around. You never hit the fly. You have to get a fly swatter or a fly gun or something like that, because the market adapts to anything that we try to do to guess its future motions. What we think is going to happen is not going to happen. The market will always do whatever will surprise the greatest number of traders. Why? Because if a lot of traders and a lot of investors have placed their bets that this is going to go up, there's no more cash left on the sidelines to make that go up. You have now exhausted the buying pressure, and now there's selling pressure. And so the thing that you thought was going to go up is now going to go down. I talked about the people who trade the most, making the least money in the market. And people think, well, I won't trade more than once a year. I'll just use market timing. Now, we talked about Mark Hilbert. He was a speaker here at the AAII Silicon Valley chapter a couple of years ago. He also came to speak to my chapter in Seattle. And he did a study of 81 stock market timers. And he found that some of them, only 11 out of 81 of them, so only about 1/10 of the people who are professional market timers who sell their advice, only about 10% of them made money during the bear market from the dot-com crisis 2000 to 2002. He found that those 11, even the ones who got it right, those 11 lost so much money since 2000 that they were down 0.8% a year on an annualized basis. And they lost money after that dot-com crisis, despite the fact that the Wilshire 5000, which represents all the stocks in the US, was going up 4.2% annualized. And so market timing seems like a brilliant solution. Why don't we just sell the day that the market is at its highest point and buy back again when the market is at its lowest point? I have not found any system that I can recommend. It's just something that we will always have to look at as a goal out there, an ideal out there. In statistics, we know that to get good, reliable data on a poll, we need to have at least 400 respondents. And it would be better to have 800 respondents. And that's where you get your margin of error, that there's a 95% chance that the poll results are within 3% of what you would get if you asked every single person. What's the margin of error in determining a market timing system? We haven't had 400 bear markets in the entire history of the United States, more like 25. We haven't had 800 bear markets in the entire history of the world. And so where's the data? Where's the information that we could use to determine a market timing system that would already always work? And if the market timing system always worked, all of the money in the world would flow into that system and it wouldn't work the next time. And so we don't want to rely on market timing. We want to use other factors that are going to give us the stability we want, the growth we want, and the crash protection that we want. A big problem that I have found is that people are not really financially literate. Wall Street has made investing seem so complex that we need to pay experts. We need to hire them. We need to get their money managers. We need to give them fees. And so the financial world seems extremely complex, so much so that many people haven't learned just the basic facts. So I'm going to ask you a poll here. Here is a question that was asked to people all around the world. These researchers found pollsters who could do it in Europe, they could do it in Asia. The question is, imagine that the interest rate on your savings account is 1% per year, but inflation is 2% per year. After 1 year, would you be able to buy with the money in your account, A, more than today, B, exactly the same as today, C, less than today, or D, you do not know? So if you think the answer is A, please say A. If you think the answer is B, please say B. If you think the answer is C, please say C. If you think the answer is D, please say D. Great. This is a very educated group. The correct answer is C. But 70% of the people in the United States who were asked this question and two other questions that are equally dumb could not answer all three questions correctly. This is like if you pay your lawnmower person $10 an hour and they work for 2 hours, how much are they going to get? We just don't have these mathematical formulas in our head. We don't have to be financial geniuses. Just being basic addition and subtraction people would be enough for us to protect our money, to make it grow, and stop having fears of crashes because we know what to do about them. So I want to go on to look at some professions that are pretty good with money. I would think that you would say that architects are fairly good people with numbers. They understand math, they have to do designs, they have to make things fit. And so a study was done of how much do people overestimate their return in their brokerage accounts. So the study showed that architects overestimated by 4.2 percentage points how much they made in the market compared with how much their account actually made. So the researchers were able to anonymize their brokerage accounts. They got their statements, and they just figured out how much did you make in the last 12 months. And the architects actually overestimated by 4.2 percentage points how much money they'd actually made in that account, and the researchers could easily determine how much did you really make. We're just overconfident. Our brains work this way. We think we're doing great. We think we're doing better than our neighbors. We think 90% of drivers say they're a better than average driver. Well, that can't possibly be the case. And so the researchers also studied members of the AAII. And us AAII members, we're pretty smart. We know about numbers. We understand investing. So how much do you think people who are AAII members were overestimating or underestimating their returns in their actual brokerage accounts in the last 12 months? So say a couple of numbers. 10%, 4%, 8%, 2%. The truth is that the AAII members were worse than the architects. They overestimated by 5 percentage points how much they made in their actual brokerage accounts compared with what they thought they made. And so we are subject to our minds. We get these tricks and we don't know that they're happening to us. So just overcoming these tricks is a key to making our money grow, making it safe. So I'm going to ask you another question. Here is a drawing. It has a pattern, it has a tower, it has a shadow. The question is, which area of this drawing is a lighter shade of gray? Area A, area B, C, the two colors are the same, or D, it cannot be determined. So those who think the answer is A, please say A. Those who think the answer is B, please say B. Those who think the answer is C, please say C. Those who think D, say D. This is a very interesting one because many people will answer A, B, C, or D, and a lot of people answered C in here today. And let's look at what the answer is to this question. I have just removed all of the confusing data that surrounds the areas that we are asking about. And the truth of the matter is that when we remove all of the noise, we find that the two squares are actually the same color. If you put this in Photoshop, you would see that this is called Pantone Warm Gray 9. It's an actual color. There's thousands of colors. But let's go back. How is it possible that those two areas are the same color, but they don't look the same color to us? The fact is that there's no checkerboard here. There's just a drawing. There's no tower, there's no shadow, but our minds are feeding us the information that has an alternating pattern. It must be a checkerboard. That is a tower. A and B have to be different colors because a checkerboard has light squares and has dark squares. Well, guess what? There's no squares there. There's just little parallelograms that somebody's drawn in with a drawing program. And so when we go back and take out the noise, we see that A and B are exactly the same color. You could draw an area between them and there wouldn't be any transition in the color. Now, why is our mind doing this to us? I'll go back one time more. Our mind is doing this because we couldn't see a hungry tiger that was about to eat us if it was in the shadow. Our mind compensates. Our mind overcorrects. We couldn't play checkers underneath the shade of a dappled oak tree if we didn't have our minds constantly compensating for this information. This is called an interference pattern. So we'll go now back to A and B. You remove all of the noise, you remove all of the interference, and you can see the truth. You can see, does anyone not agree that those two areas are the same color? These two are, right. And maybe I'm tricking you. Maybe I've changed the colors. But I swear that I have not done anything but remove all of the confusing information. The tower, the shadow, those are illusions. This is an interference pattern developed by Edward Adelson, who's a professor of visual psychological interpretation. So it really is true. Now, the biggest interference pattern that we will ever encounter in our life is Wall Street. And they are doing this to you all the time. We can make you see whatever we want you to see. So here's the next question. Which stock on the New York Stock Exchange will go up the most on Monday? A, the one with the lowest price earnings ratio, B, the one with the highest earnings per share growth, or C, it cannot be determined. Anyone who's saying, I'm not even going to ask the question to that because I'm just going to tell you the answer is C. We have absolutely no way of knowing what stock is going to go up the most on Monday. There are no experts who can predict the future. There's a thing called the blind forecaster. Morgan Housel, who used to write for the Motley Fool, has done a lot of work on this. It's a very funny story. And the blind forecaster sits in the cave, has no information, and every January 1, they go over to talk to that person, and he says, the S&P 500 is going up 9% this year. Next January 1st, he'll say 9%. The year after that, he'll say 9%. He says 9% every year. Doesn't have any information at all. He's a blind forecaster. his prediction is closer to the correct number than the average of the economists at all of the major Wall Street banks. It's just scandalous. It's just hilarious. And think of how much money. These are not people who are fake experts. These are the experts. They are the highest compensated economists and predictors and prognosticators that we see. And they do not manage to predict the S&P 500 on January 1 better than just somebody in a cave saying it'll go up 9% this year. So we're paying for a huge edifice. We're paying fees and expenses and wealth managers for no good reason. It's just like the tower casting the shadow. It looks like, oh, B must be better because here's this person. They have expensive clothing. Look at the nice office they have. And it's just a con. We can manage our own money far better than paying somebody else. We just have to stick to a formula and use the basic principles that a lot of people in the United States and around the world do not know. So let me open the floor for questions right now. Are there any questions about how our minds trick us? Good. I like it when there aren't more questions because then I can hear myself talk more. But don't be afraid. Just jump right in anytime you want. This is what it looks like when our brain is doing this little dance. Normally, we use the prefrontal cortex. That's the prefrontal is the part before the frontal, the part in front of the frontal. But when we are faced with a financial loss, the market has gone down, our portfolio has gone down, you know, we lost money on Tesla, whatever it is. When we have a financial loss, our brain automatically goes into a different mode. It turns control from the logical center, the prefrontal cortex, over to the amygdala. The amygdala is this little red thing on the right, and that is a primitive part of our brain. It's sometimes called the reptilian brain. It handles very basic, very primitive emotions and reactions. It's what controls the fight versus flight response. So you see a hungry tiger, is it better to hit him with a stick? Better to hide in a tree trunk? Is it better to run? The flight versus fight response is very central to who we are and how we react. Our brains are very highly optimized to recognize spaces. You can recognize another person's face in a tenth of a second. And it's very important for us as a species to recognize, is that person a friend or is that a person who's trying to kill me? And so we have evolved over the years with very, very good facial recognition features and very good, that's a gang member, I stole all of his money, he probably wants to kill me, I think I'd better get away. But the flight versus fight response does not serve us well in financial markets because financial markets always involve loss. Unless you're holding money market funds only, you have stocks and they go up and down. Well, what happens when they go down? Your brain turns control over to your amygdala. Your amygdala makes up a reason why you should do something, and then it feeds your verbal center a message saying, what I'm doing now is the only reasonable and logical thing I could do. We don't have any awareness of this. That makes it extremely dangerous. This is the reason why traders buy a stock and it goes up 6%, but the stock they sold to get that cash went up 9%. Our amygdala is just saying, this looks great, I know what's going to happen, I can predict the future, I'm going to buy, and we are being deceived by our own instincts, which serve us well in the cases that we get served well, but they are things that we just have to overcome. Even knowing that we have this kind of behavior going on, I've looked at the checkerboard illusion hundreds of times, and it still looks like that damn B is lighter than the A. Just intellectually knowing that we have these behavioral flaws does not overcome them. We have to step aside from ourselves, get our brains out of the mix, and put our money more on an automatic formula that we have decided on. So now we're going to retrain your brain so you can retain your gain. If you don't want your brain to be retrained, just go outside for 10 minutes. If you'd like to learn about this, then stay put, and we'll deal with it as best we can. Now, we talked about Mark Culbert before, and he has data on hundreds of newsletters, websites, services, email providers who have predicted what stocks and bonds people should hold. He's got 33 years of data, and he found that if you had a newsletter that had good performance for the last 1 year, that did nothing to predict whether that newsletter would have outperformance in the following 1 year. Having 5 years of outperformance did not predict anything about whether that service would outperform in the next 5 years. Even having 10 years of outperformance did nothing to indicate whether that service would have outperformance in the next 10 years. It was just random. If you take the people and say, these are the ones in the top and these are the ones at the bottom, it was just random whether they're going up and down. Mark Hulbert found that you had to have 15 years of outperformance by a service so that that service gave you a better than a random chance of outperforming in the next 15 years, even if a service outperformed in the last 15 years. It was not a guarantee. Only 50% of the cases would outperform in the next 15 years. The other 50% would underperform. That's still better than chance. That's a lot better than chance. To be in the top quartile, 25% of the newsletters would be in the top 1/4 just by chance. So to say I have a 50% chance of being in the top quartile, that's actually pretty significant. The interesting exception that Mark Hulbert found, and that Vanguard Group has found in similar studies, and that professors have found in similar studies, newsletters with the worst performance tended to underperform again, whether the period measured was 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, or 15 years. So what do we take away from this? You've heard this before, and I want to emphasize it. Past performance does not predict future performance, except past bad performance is very predictive of future bad performance. So this is something a little revolutionary. I'm going to upset you now, perhaps, because we cannot use backtesting software to predict future gains. There just isn't enough predictive ability to say this performed well, now I'm going to follow it, and it is guaranteed to perform well. What's true is that we can use backtests to look for portfolio strategies that have crashed in the past. Portfolios that have bad returns in the past are statistically very likely to have bad crash returns in the future. So if a portfolio has lost 50% of your money in the past, like the global financial crisis or the dot-com emergency or whatever, it's almost guaranteed it's going to lose 50% again at some point in the unforeseeable future. We have to recognize that if a portfolio strategy lost 50% in the last crash, it's probable that it'll lose more money in the next crash because your largest drawdown will always be in your future. I can't prove that. I don't have the future. We'll have to wait and see. But the S&P 500 was down 40% in the dot-com crisis of 2000 to 2002, and then it went down 50% in the global financial crisis of 2007 to 2009. You might say, well, it hasn't crashed for 10 years. We're in one of the longest bull markets in history. On the average, the S&P 500, including dividends, crashes 30% every 10 years. On the average, the S&P 500, including dividends, has a severe crash, which I define as 40% or more, every 18 years. So this bull market is over 10 years long. The last bear market in the global financial crisis was about 16, 17 months long. So are we overdue for a crash now? Yes, we are. And can you predict when it will be? No. This bull market could go another 5 years. It could be the longest bull market in world history. There's no law saying the bull market has to end at a certain date. We don't know. But no one knew in 1987 that the market would be down 22% on Monday. There weren't people going around saying, oh, now it's going to go down 22%. That was a total surprise. And I was on the trading floor of UBS Securities in 1987 as the assistant IT manager. And I have never seen the trading floor so quiet as when the Dow was down 5%, 10%, 15%, finally 22%. In 1987, you had to call a broker on the phone and order a trade. Brokers traded with each other by phone. You didn't have the internet. You didn't have email. and no one would answer the phone. They knew that you were calling to sell your stuff to them, and they didn't want to buy your stuff. The market is already down 10%. What if it's down another 10%? And it was. And so the brokers are all sitting around, you know, just kind of looking. We had terminals on all of the traders' desks, and the more important traders had the more terminals, so everybody was trying to get more terminals to look like they were the most important trader. The terminals in 1987 could not show a decline in the Dow Jones Industrial Average of more than 99.99 points. They just never thought. It's like the gasoline pumps that used to be able to not show more than $1 per gallon. I remember those. I'm showing my age. But we couldn't see what was going on. Nobody knew what was going on. Nobody would answer the phone. And so by the end of the day, then you kind of turn on the TV and you say, yeah, the Dow was down 22%. Boy, that was scary. Scary times. The market went straight up after that. I personally know people who sold everything on Black Monday of 1987. And that was not a one-day bear market. The market had gone down about 40% over the past 2.5 months. So they were getting out at the very bottom. Question? Well, somebody was, the question is, was the market going down because nobody would answer their phones? One reason for the crash of 1987 was called portfolio insurance. And this was a computerized system, which people were sold all of this software with the idea that you would buy put options on the market. And the put options would gain in value as the market was crashing. Well, on Black Monday in 1987, nobody would sell you put options. And so people had to sell the real stocks because they didn't know what was going on. They couldn't buy the put options. The computer just said, okay, now I need to lower my risk, let's sell. And so you had this huge wave of selling. In 1987, the market was saved by the fact that many, many, many major corporations said, we're buying up thousands of our shares tomorrow. We're going to invest in our own companies. We're going to buy back our shares. And that restored confidence. And the market then went up from that low point, and we had the 1987 to 2000 bull market, which I think is one of the longest bull markets in history. So what we want as informed investors is we want to avoid strategies that have large drawdowns in the past, because those are very, very likely to have large drawdowns in the future. What individual investors fear and react to is losing their money. The amygdala takes over, as we've talked about. You have a loss. The loss is getting bigger and bigger. You decide to liquidate near the end of the bear market, and you hear yourself saying, I must protect my family's life savings. I must sell these stocks. There is no other reasonable or logical thing to do. And we talk ourselves right into it. And it's not us, it's our subconscious mind. And this is happening to us, and we have to avoid that. Individual investors largely use reverse market timing. They buy stocks when the market is exciting, and they sell stocks when the market is scary. So we have to overcome that. Now, let's look at an example of how this works in real life. Everyone here has heard of Warren Buffett. He is one of the most celebrated investors of our lifetime. And he has a tremendous record. This is a chart from the book, which is 2000 through about 2015. You can see that Buffett's portfolio, which is called Berkshire Hathaway, or BRK, went up from $100, you would have had $346. It more than tripled your money in this 15-year period of time. The S&P 500 had a bear market from 2000 to 2002, a bull market until 2007. It had the crash in 2007 and 2008, 2009. And then it has had a bull market since that time. But the S&P 500, because of those crashes, only increased your wealth by about 65%. So the S&P 500 just turned your $100 into $165. So my question for you is this. How much did Warren Buffett outperform the S&P 500, or SPY, the ETF, in both of the last two bull markets? So here's a bull market here, from this bullet to this bullet, and here's Warren Buffett's performance up here. Now here's the current bull market, which is from the 2009 bullet up to the 2015 bullet. Just counting those two bull market periods, and looking at SPY's performance and Warren Buffett's performance, how much did Warren Buffett outperform the S&P 500 in both of the last two bull markets? Would you say A, he outperformed by more than 5 percentage points? Would you say B, he outperformed by 0 to 5 percentage points? Would you say C, he underperformed the S&P 500, or D, it cannot be determined? Those who would say A, please say A. Those who would say B, please say B. Those who would say C, please say C. Those who would say D, please say D. Now, this is an interesting group because we had a smattering of votes for A. We had a smattering of votes for B. I only heard 1 or 2 votes for C and a couple of votes for D. Is that about right? Is that what you heard out there? Now, the actual truth, we can see here that Buffett's performance in this very long 15-year period was about 6% annualized, 6-7% somewhere in there. And so over the entire 15-year period, he outperformed by more than 5 percentage points. He outperformed 6-7 percentage points. But when you break it down, the answer is C. Warren Buffett underperformed the S&P 500 in both the last 2 bull markets. All of Warren Buffett's great outperformance has come from him keeping his losses small in bear markets. And so even we who are AAII members, I'm a lifetime AAII member, many of you are, we don't have in our brains a computer that massages this data for us. This is how Wall Street confuses us and adds noise and adds confusing data into what our brains are capable of processing. Because the answer was right there on the chart, the blue line and the orange line. What's true is that in the dot-com crisis, the S&P 500 was down 48%. Warren Buffett's portfolio was actually up 24%. He just happened to not have a lot of his investments in tech stocks, and tech stocks really took it down when they did their little dive after 2000. In the 2007 through 2009 bear market, which is the global financial crisis, the S&P 500 was down 55%, and Warren Buffett was only down 40%. Now, that may not look like much of a difference, but losses compound. The recovery time to recover from a loss increases geometrically as you have a bigger loss. I'm sure you heard this many times before. If you lose 25% of your portfolio, it takes you a 33% gain in order for your money to get back to even. But if you lose 50% of the money in your portfolio, you have to have a gain of 100% to get back to even. So it's not just worse, it's geometrically worse. So what happens when you have a little gain during the dot-com crash and you have less of a loss during the global financial crisis is you have this. You have this massive outperformance of the market, which is the blue line at the top of the graph. The S&P 500 actually gave people 0 return if you measure from 2000 over here to 2011. That line, including dividends, you made no money because you had crashed so much. You had gone down 40% in the dot-com crash. You'd gone down 50% in the global financial crisis. And those crashes are very difficult to recover from. It takes geometrically longer to recover from those crashes. So the message that we can take away from this is that if Warren Buffett, one of the best, smartest, most informed investors of our lifetime, cannot beat the S&P 500 during a bull market, why should you? Why would we expect anyone to beat one of the indexes that's the most powerful, strongest uptrends in the world? The S&P 500 isn't always the most remunerative index in the world, but a lot of the times the U.S. economy is strong, the U.S. economy is growing. Almost 50% of the capital market value of all of the corporations that are publicly traded in the world are based in the United States. So it has a tremendously dynamic economy. But Warren Buffett has a diversified portfolio. He's not just going out there buying index funds. He's making a bet, a concentrated bet on 20, 22, whatever number of companies that are in his portfolio at a time. And so what do we hear from Wall Street constantly, over and over, the drumbeat? Beat the market, beat the market, beat the market. What is CNBC telling you? What are day trading firms that want to sell you their software telling you? Beat the market. You must beat the market every year. You must beat the market every month. That is the big lie. We make money as investors by keeping our losses small. We have been fed the big lie, and this is still being taught at every business college in the world, that the only way to increase the gains of a portfolio is to increase your risk. That's called the capital asset pricing model. It's called CAPM. Totally false. It was debunked by Eugene Fama and Kenneth French, who are two very well-known economists. Eugene Fama won the Nobel Prize in Economics along with some other economists in 2013. Well, the capital asset pricing model, saying those stocks that are the most risky are the ones that will make you the most money, won the Nobel Prize for Economics in the 1980s, the 1990s. And so that got all the publicity. And Eugene Fama and Kenneth French are kind of putting out these musty white papers that are hard to read. And so they win the Nobel Prize, which is worth $1 million. It's a good thing. But they didn't get the headlines on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, or the headlines on the front page of the New York Times, or the headlines on the front page of USA Today. And so people are still afflicted by this big lie that you have to increase the risk in your portfolio in order to increase your gains. What's actually true is that we can increase the gains in our portfolio by reducing our risk. What's Warren Buffett doing when he's down 40%, when the S&P is down 55%? He is keeping his risk smaller. He's buying companies that are good, that are likely to survive a recession, that are likely to grow, even when we have bad economic conditions. So, before I take another question, I want to go into one more example of whether we can overcome our behavioral biases. The researchers have done a famous experiment called the marshmallow test. They brought in children from preschool, they're like 4 years, 5 years of age, and they told them, here's a marshmallow on a plate. If you wait 15 minutes and you don't eat the marshmallow, we'll give you 2 marshmallows. The very shocking thing, first of all, one boy didn't even wait for the teacher to explain the rules. He just popped the marshmallow in his mouth. We don't want to be like that. That's like the day traders. Oh, I'm going to trade right now. Oh, no, I'm going to sell it. The marshmallow test is extremely predictive of future success in life. So the children who waited the 15 minutes to eat the marshmallow so they could get a bigger treat 15 minutes later, when you go and test them over their lives, they've graduated from high school, they've graduated from college, and the ones who waited had higher scores on their SAT tests, they completed more years of college, and they were less afflicted by obesity. This is 15 years later. Now, this is the kind of patience that we have to have as investors also. So I want to give you a thought experiment. You know about exchange-traded funds. These are a big improvement on mutual funds. They don't have the high fees. They can be traded in and out at any time of the day. You don't have to wait until the next day to find out what the price is. ETFs have a lot of advantages over mutual funds. They are more tax efficient. Let's say that a new exchange-traded fund comes out and they're pitching it to you. Would you buy it? The ETF guarantees that your portfolio will receive 2/3 of the gain of the S&P 500 in months that the index goes up. Would you buy that ETF? How many people would buy that ETF? 1, 2, okay. Wow. Why would you not buy that ETF? Well, who wants 2/3 of the gain of the S&P 500? I want 100% of the gain. Oh, excuse me, I forgot one little fact. The fund also guarantees that your portfolio will lose only half of the loss of the S&P 500 in months when the index goes down. Would you buy that ETF now? All right, I see some hands. That's really good. Because that is an incredible, powerful force. It's beyond the capabilities of our minds to calculate this in our heads. So let's graph it. This is what you get if you lost only half the money of the S&P 500 in months when the index went down, and you made only 2/3 of the gain of the S&P 500 in months that it went up. You're the blue line. The S&P 500 is the orange line. The blue line just beats the pants off of the S&P 500. You're up 130% in 14 years, and the S&P 500 was up only 70%. You almost had double the gain. Now you can see on the chart and in the book, look at this long bull market from the end of the dot-com crisis in 2003 to the top of the bull market in 2007. The S&P went up 107%. The ETF that guaranteed you only 1/2 down and 2/3 up it gained only 73%. Well, individual investors aren't going to tolerate that. Individual investors have been trained, beat the market, beat the market. And if something isn't beating the market in 1 year, they're selling and going someplace else. If it doesn't beat the market in 2 years, forget it, I'm out of here. This formula is not working. It's not beating the market every year. Pension fund managers, large banks with institutional investors, 100% in polls and surveys that they've done with these professionals, 100% of the pension fund managers and institutional bank portfolio managers fire outside money managers they've hired if they do not beat their benchmark within 3 years. 40% fire them if they don't beat their benchmark in 1 year. Another 45% fire the outside managers if they don't beat their benchmark during a 2-year period, but they all get rid of them if they didn't outperform their benchmark for 3 years running. And what's the joke? Can anybody tell me the joke? Just tell me the punchline. The punchline is the managers that got fired because they underperformed go on in the next 3 years to do better than the managers that the people brought in. Because there's reversion to the average. Reversion to the average is just by random chance, your formula or your strategy is going to underperform some of the time, and other times it's going to outperform, but it's random. And so look at this again. In the long bull market that we're in currently, your portfolio went up 135%, that's the blue line. The S&P 500 went up 204%, that's the orange line. Well, the S&P 500 tripled my money, and you only increased my money by doubling it. Forget it. I'm out of here. This formula isn't working. And we do this over and over and over again. This is the basic human behavior of all average individual investors out there. And all we can do is try to help ourselves to get through this, because Wall Street focuses us on these little months, these little quarters. The New York Times has a thing, the money manager of the quarter. The quarter, I want to know the last 15 years. The quarter is nothing. The market is always focusing our attention on little bits of the orange line, and it's not focusing our attention on the long term. Now, you can't buy an ETF that will guarantee you to lose only half the money of the S&P in the down months and 2/3 of the gain of the S&P in the up months. But we can do something like that. If you look at the cycle analysis of this, here I've reset the value of each portfolio back to 0 at the end of the bull market. So here's one bear market and one bull market. You went up 36%, SPY only went up 14%. Now you reset your portfolios to 0, and then you had only a 28% loss in the global financial crisis. The S&P had a 51% loss. And then even though the S&P tripled your money and you only went up about 1-2 times with your portfolio, you still beat the S&P 500 in both of these bear bull market cycles. So it's important for me to communicate to people that we have to focus on complete bear bull market cycles. That's really the only time period that we get data that is effective. The Wall Street gurus are always focusing on the last bull market. Look at how much money we made in the last bull market. But it's not how much you make in the bear market that matters. It's how much you keep in the bear market that follows. And a bear market always follows a bull market. In fact, bear markets cause bull markets because assets are so beaten down during the bear markets that finally it reaches a point where, wow, yeah, I would buy that. That's only 5 PE or something. And so you then get a reaction from the market being so low, like the crash of 1987, pulling the Dow down 22% in one day. That was actually a great buying opportunity. This is a formula that most people just do not know about. And we call this conscious underperformance. This is actually something that will keep a formula that uses 1/2 down, 2/3 up from being overgrazed and overused and making too much money pour into it so it will stop working. Who is going to go for 10 years underperforming the S&P 500? They won't. People constantly jump from strategy to strategy every 1 or 2 years. The strategy disappoints them because why did they select that strategy? They selected the strategy because it had good performance in the last 1 or 2 years. What is going to happen next? You will have reversion to the average. And so we constantly go from strategy to strategy to strategy, which disappoint us because we selected a strategy that outperformed in the recent past. So before I go into this, are there any questions about this? I call this a market cycle graph, that you break it down so that you can see what happened during the bear market and the bull market together. Any questions about this kind of formula? Yes, question? Right, Buffett says the first rule.
You've explained it.
Is to not lose money. Now, does Buffett lose money? You bet. He's not out there buying jelly beans. He's buying stocks, and they go up and down. But you have to ignore that little bit of risk and that little bit of volatility, because what we want to avoid are the crashes. If we can avoid the crashes, if we can go down less than half of the crash, we have a huge, tremendous head start. We have a tremendous advantage over the market. So let's go to the 3 things that I found that work. And this is going to make you mad, because we hear all about stuff in the AAII of this technical indicator, that fundamental analysis, all of this stuff. And in my work as a journalist, so I'm writing a book. It took 6 years to put it together. I wondered, how can I, as a journalist, recommend to average families, people who don't have millions of dollars, they're not like Warren Buffett, they just have the money that they've eked out of the ground, literally with their hands, to save, and now they've got their 10,000 bucks or their 100,000 bucks or their $500,000 bucks. And that may be all that they have to live on for the rest of their lives once they get too old to work. What can I, as a journalist, recommend to them that is just very basic? Let's strip down all of investing. Let's take away all of the noise. Let's get rid of all the clutter. Let's get rid of the interference patterns. What's left? What can we tell people are principles that are so bedrock to investing that you can just count on them to always work over long periods of time, like a complete variable market cycle? So the number 1 principle is compounding. If you leave the gains in your portfolio rather than removing them prematurely, your account will compound, and you will eventually be making more money out of that account than you can make at a job. That means you have financial freedom to take a better job, to do jobs that you like, and not to work for pay just because you can't pay your bills. The second principle is diversification. This has been proven in study after study, hundreds of studies. Asset classes that have a low correlation to each other can be combined into a portfolio that's less risky than any single asset class. Very counterintuitive principle that actually was first proven in the 1952 study by John Markowitz, that you have stocks, you have bonds. That was about all you could really easily trade in 1952. The way you combine stocks and bonds, you can make a portfolio that will perform for you better than buying one or the other. You combine them because they diversify each other. They are non-correlated. They have low correlation with each other. And the third principle, which is the least well understood principle, is momentum. This was shown by 2 researchers in 1993. Asset classes that have gained the most in the past 3 to 12 months tend to continue to rise over the next 1 month or more. They don't say over the next year. The principle only works for 1 month. And so you can't just let your portfolio drift. You are required, as an informed investor, to check your portfolio once a month. We have a free website at muscularportfolios.com. And this is the first website to give away for free the momentum rankings on low-cost index funds. So anybody can go there. Anybody can say, for the next 30 days, I will have these 3 ETFs. And if the market changes, I'll sell one and I'll buy something else. So on the average, the informed investor needs to make 9 changes a year. There are 3 months of the year that it's just the same as it was the last month. This doesn't change very often. We update the numbers on the website every 10 minutes during market hours. But you have whole weeks going by that the top 3 exchange-traded funds are the same as they were last month. But momentum is very poorly understood by individual investors as a whole. So I talked about Eugene Fama and Kenneth French. They are the people who put out the white papers saying the stocks that go up the most are those with the most market risk, or they're the ones that are the most small cap instead of large cap, or they're the ones that have the most value instead of the ones that have the most growth. That's called the three-factor model. About 3 or 4 years later, this is all explained in the chapter on momentum. They added to their three-factor model a fourth factor, which is momentum. And so now you have the four-factor model, and you can go nuts with it. You can have 5 factors, 6 factors, 7 factors, but you come back to these basic principles that why would an asset that has gone up the most in the past 12 months continue to go up for another 1 month? That's because Morningstar, the Wall Street Journal, all of these data providers are publishing how well did these funds do in the last 12 months. You, the informed investor who have a free website that you can go and check and you can make your trade right now today, you get in before those other people have gotten around to reading the Wall Street Journal or looking up their Morningstar account or whatever it is. And so you have some buying pressure because of this recent past performance. Well, those people who are buying in don't know that that outperformance might only last for 1 more month. You know, who in the Wall Street Journal is publishing the 13-month performance of mutual funds and ETFs? Nobody. So you have a little advantage there. Could I repeat this study? Oh, the website is muscularportfolios.com. We have 3 model portfolios on there. They're totally free. They're explained in the book and they're explained on the website. So I want to emphasize at this point that I am a journalist, not a wealth manager. I don't want your money. I won't take your money to manage. I want everyone in the world to learn how to manage their own money. We have all these pension funds. We have 401ks. We have all kinds of programs that let us save money tax-free. And then you don't get hit with a tax bill until you actually take out some money when you're 70 or 80. But those tax advantage funds, like 401k plans, almost universally do not allow the members to trade more than once or twice a month. Far out. We have a system that you only need to trade once a month, sometimes not even as often as once a month. And so it works with your 401k. In Canada, they have a RRS thing. In other countries like the UK, they have a different thing like that. They all want to keep your trading to a minimum. Well, let's just go with that. There's no need for day trading. There's no need for swing trading, which you have to change your position in the market every few days. We can do everything we need to do with 1 trade a month or even less than 1 trade a month. Let's look at what the experts have said about the momentum rule. Eugene Fama, the Nobel Prize winner, wrote a fairly well-known white paper in 1970. I quote directly from him saying, security prices at any time fully reflect all available information. This is called the efficient markets hypothesis. And everybody in every business school in the world has heard about this. The market is efficient. Nobody can make any profits in the market. The information instantly is reflected in the price of all stocks and commodities and assets that are traded. Even Eugene Fama doesn't agree with this anymore. It was totally disproven. It was disproven by economist who won the Nobel Prize with Eugene Fama the same year, called Robert Shiller. And Robert Shiller showed that the prices of assets bounce up and down far more than can be explained by they have good dividends, they have a new CEO, whatever. It's just our brains are constantly churning and buying and selling based on our feelings. So Eugene Fama and his co-writer, Kenneth French, wrote as recently as 2007, the premier anomaly is momentum. Stocks with low returns over the last year tend to have low returns for the next few months, and stocks with high past returns tend to have high future returns. So Eugene Fama, the author of the efficient markets hypothesis, got the message, and he totally overthrew his own studies and came around to the 4-factor model, which is market risk, small cap, value, and momentum. You have Andrew Ng, who was a consultant for the World Bank and a consultant for the International Monetary Fund. He now is a top executive of BlackRock, which is the largest sponsor of exchange-traded funds. In 2014, he wrote in his book, Momentum Returns Blow Size and Value Out of the Water. The cumulated profits on momentum strategies have been an order of magnitude larger than accumulated profits on size and value. And why did he say that? Because in the period of time that Fama and French proved that small cap stocks make more money than large cap stocks and value stocks make more money than growth stocks, in that period of time, that was true. But is the future going to be like the past? No, the future is going to be different from the past. Value stocks have underperformed growth stocks in the United States for the last 10 years. It just comes and goes. These are factors that have timing within them, and we can't predict their timing. And so anybody who is just buying value stocks, the people who bought growth stocks have doubled their gain in that same period of time. What we've learned is that the momentum rule is an exception to the principle that past performance does not predict future performance. What's true, and Fama won the Nobel Prize in 2013 and Robert Shiller won the Nobel Prize in 2013, is some things about past performance do predict future performance. Some things, not very many, and what we know is that it's the last 3 to 12 months that are important. It's not the last 50 years. You can't take the data from the last 50 years and extend it out and say this is what will be good this year. You can only take the data that's from the last 3 to 12 months, and those rankings only work for you for the next 1 month. So is this active investing? I would say no. Is it passive investing? I would say no, except that you're using passive index funds, which just track an index. This is what's called mechanical investing. You pick a formula that makes sense, and then you follow it. You don't use your feelings and your thoughts and your research and your opinions to buy and sell things. You just use the formula. Here is a quantified example of how much the small cap factor and the value factor have decayed in effectiveness since they were discovered about 30 years ago. So you look from 1982 to 2012. The small cap factor underperformed the market 45% of the time. And that means 36-month periods. So you take all the 3-year periods going back, and 45% of the time, the small cap factor underperformed the market. The small cap value underperformed about 42% of the time. Just using a value factor underperformed about 37% of the time. The momentum factor underperformed the broad market only about 14% of the 36-month periods that were studied. And so there's something about the momentum factor that makes it unlikely to be overgrazed. It makes it unlikely to be used up and used too much by investors all over the world, and even the fastest super traders with the fastest supercomputers. It's not intuitive. When something has gone up over the last 12 months, a lot of people think it's gone up too much. I can't buy it now. It's already too high. Well, I've found in my research that there is no such thing as a working investment strategy that buys low and sells high. What works is investment strategies that buy high and sell higher. And we're always hearing buy low, sell high. Well, that's the lie. That's the disinformation that we're getting. You can't buy low and sell high because how would you know? Is something low? Yeah, it looks low to me. I think I'll sell it, and then it goes up. Is it high? Yeah, it's high. I think I'll sell it, and then it goes up. So we have to overcome these kinds of basic behavioral issues in order to make money out of the market. Any questions about momentum versus using small cap and using value? Any questions? I open the floor to questions. And over here.
Taken over what, 80, 70, 80% of the market?
Machine trading has taken over maybe 80% of the market. Okay.
And am I correct in assuming that that is in really that dramatic growth has occurred in the last 5 to 10 years? And so sort of what impact has machine trading had on those from 2012?
Yes. Machine trading is often called high frequency trading. And people made a lot of money by getting very fast communication lines into the stock markets. And the stock markets made a lot of money selling direct communication lines to these high frequency traders, also known as freaks. They are mainly making money by trading right in front of you just because they know by having a faster communication line that you're making these large trades. And I'm not talking about, you know, your $1 million. I'm talking about Citibank's $100 million order or Wells Fargo's $100 million order. They are not primarily making money guessing the direction of the market. They don't care. Is it a buy? They'll get in front of it. Is it a sell? They'll get in front of it. And so it doesn't really move the prices. But Michael Lewis, in his book, The Flash Boys, which is about this high frequency thing, estimated that the high frequency traders 4 or 5 years ago were scraping 0.07 of 1% out of every trade. On the average, you are losing 0.07% of your trades. Now, that doesn't bother us if we're trading once a month. So your question goes right into my next slide. Here is the actual money performance of one of the 3 portfolios in the book. It's called the Mama Bear portfolio. In the global financial crisis, the portfolio of you have the 3 highest rated ETFs. It was flat. It was actually up maybe 4%. So it avoided or sidestepped the financial crisis, the crash of 50%, not by market timing. We call it buy in the attic and stay out of the basement. So you take the index funds, you take the asset classes that are out there that are available now for very, very cheaply to buy and sell. If something is in the top half in the last 6 months, and this is a study that's referenced in the book, an asset that's in the top half in the last 6 months' performance, 54% of the time it will be in the top half next month. So you want to buy in the top half. I don't care if you buy the top 3. You could buy the top 4. You could buy the top 5. It's just a question of don't buy things that are crashing. Don't hang on to things that are crashing. Don't wait until you hear that it's the bottom of a bear market to sell. You should just be using a gradual asset rotation system. Now, the Mama Bear portfolio with real money here in 2009 to the end of this study, which was 2014, went up 117%. But the S&P 500 in that same period of time was up 188%. The S&P almost tripled your money, and the portfolio was using conscious underperformance, 117%. That's pretty nice. What you get when you combine those 2 periods of time is look at this outperformance. That the S&P 500 was only up 7% a year. The top 3 ETFs, if you just kept checking them once a month, was up 15% a year. Now, are we going to have that same performance again? No. The future is going to be different. The point is that it's not buying riskier assets that gives you more gains. It's keeping your risk low and not fully participating in these crashes. That gives you great gains over your lifetime. And our average American is going to do this? No. They're going to say, it didn't work last year. It's not working. And so we have a small coterie of people, a small community of people who understand the math. It's hard math to get. I can't do this in my head. I need Excel. I need Quant, which is a backtesting system from Meb and Faber, who hasn't yet won the Nobel Prize in economics. I razz him about that every time I see him. Won the Nobel yet, Meb? But you use these tools and you find out these patterns, and then you can use them in your actual investing. So here we have something that is available for free on muscularportfolios.com. The Mama Bear portfolio uses 9 index funds. It has 3 representing equity asset classes. Those are in the red. It has 3 that represent alternatives like REITs, real estate investment trusts, commodities and gold. That's in the yellow. And it has 2 asset classes that are fixed income, which in this case includes treasury bonds and cash. The Papa Bear portfolio, which is another model portfolio, uses 13 asset classes. So it's just a little bit more to keep track of, but you only buy the top 3 every month. And if they're falling out of the top 3, you just sell them. Don't get wedded to your investments. And we have the strategy rules right here on the screen and right on the web page. So you just select a day of the month, the last couple days of the month or the first 5 days of the following month. Work a little bit the best. It might just be random, but you might as well do it around the end of the month or the first of the month so you kind of remember, oh, I'm supposed to be checking the website now. This kind of a table is shown on the website and the data is upgraded every 10 minutes. So people want to know, am I getting the freshest data? Well, yes, and we use a service that provides the data to us for free because they like what we're doing. But you don't have to check it every 10 minutes, and you shouldn't day trade. All you need to do is just check it once a month. See if there's a trade required, make the trade, and then turn off your computer and go out and have fun. That's the greatest thing. So I'd like to start wrapping up here with what we get out of all of this research, all of this real money data, all of these years of experience by the financial experts that have developed these portfolios. And by the way, I did not develop any of the portfolios. They were developed by Meb and Faber, who co-authored the IB portfolio book, Steve Lecomte, who's the CEO of the CXO Advisory Group, which has a website that he blogs every day about what's going on with the market, and our friend Jack Bogle, who founded the Vanguard Group. And one of the 3 model portfolios is the one that Jack Bogle liked, which he always said, just buy 50% stocks and 50% bonds, and just do that. The 50-50 stock portfolio does better than the average hedge fund. And hedge funds have a very, very bad record. And you can see that the faster they trade and the more computers they add, the more personal bias they're adding on. And that's why they underperform the S&P 500. But the 50-50 portfolio has outperformed the S&P 500 if you measure it using complete bear bull market cycles. So we have these 3 portfolios, and they're shown. And so the takeaway from this talk is that we must give up the fantasy that we can improve the gain of an asset class by guessing which individual securities are going to do the best. Even Warren Buffett does not guess which securities are going to beat a bull market. And if the greatest investor in our time cannot do it, why would we believe the lie that we have the ability in our minds to see through all of the clutter, to see through all of the noise? If Buffett doesn't do it, we don't have to expect ourselves to do it. We can liberate ourselves from the possibility that we're psychic geniuses. We're not. We're not psychic and we're not geniuses. We're just people. Secondly, we want to use mechanical investing, not using passive investing. It's been shown that just holding just those 9 ETFs, if you just had all of those 9 ETFs in equal weight all the time, that would crash. It crashes down because the things that are in the basement are going down. We want to avoid the illusion of active investing. So by using mechanical investing, just picking a formula and using that, we don't put our brains and our emotions on the line. We're actually just using a formula and letting the computer do it. If you were selected somehow to play a game for $1 million, if you won, against the chess grandmaster of the world, would you use your own guesses of what to move, or would you have a supercomputer that would tell you the moves? Well, come on. Everybody knows that supercomputers play chess better than the best grandmasters in the world. And they're winning the prizes, and they're playing each other now. They don't care about the humans anymore. There are fields of endeavor where the computer just will make better decisions than humans can make, because we are affected by what our parents did with money. We are affected by what we did to make money when we were broke. We're affected by what our spouse thinks about money. We're affected by our children growing up and they're saying, we want more money, Dad or Mom. That layer of stuff just goes away if we use a mechanical formula and we don't change it. We don't try to second guess it. We say the computer can play chess better than we can, so let's do it. And third, low-cost index ETFs have been proven that they will give you 99% of the gain of any asset class that you want to invest in. And so why not use that? If hedge funds can't give you 100% of the return of the market, they're actually far underperforming the market. Why would we think that we could do so? But if you use index ETFs, they're very low cost, and you are assured that at least you're going to get the return of that market. The Vanguard funds are very close to tracking the market. The BlackRock funds are the same, very close to tracking the market. So I would like to invite everyone here to come to the 4-hour seminar tomorrow. And you can see it at bri.li/money. That's my own website. It makes tiny URLs. LI is Liechtenstein. So I found out that they were selling domains to people who weren't citizens of Liechtenstein because they'd already sold 5 domain names to them. And so I got it. Nobody had taken BRI, so I got BRI.li. So now it's a really short URL that we can say and remember, and it's easy. So go there, and the website previously said the seminar tomorrow was $199. Well, because you've been such a great audience, I'm lowering it right now to $149. So I hope that some of you will come tomorrow. We already have 7 people signed up. I hope we get some more. Anybody think they might join us tomorrow? Any takers? Yeah, there's some. Okay, good. So go to that website and register today. We're not taking credit cards at the hotel tomorrow, but I'd like to see more of you come, and we're going to go over some stuff that will just blow your mind. So do you think you learned something from these slides today? Yes. Okay, was that worth it? All right. Well, that's all I want. I don't want your money. I'm not a wealth manager. I just want to get this information out to the people. Okay, Don? What is the turnover of the funds? About 9 times a year, you sell one fund and you buy another fund. The other 3 months of the year, there's no change at all because the rankings are the same as the last month. So it's not a lot of work. It's more than 100% turnover of your funds, but what you want is the results. Now we have very, very low costs to have that kind of turnover. If you're buying index funds, you're not buying individual stocks. Okay, where is Lynn? We want to have him take over now, and I'll be over here to answer any of the questions that you might have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very interesting presentation. We're going to, Brian will be around for a while to answer questions. We're going to start wrapping up and taking the equipment down. If any of you want to talk to board members, raise your hand if you're a board member. Anyway, thank you very much. Have a good day. Please turn in your survey forms. We've simplified them. We use them in future planning. So thank you much.